Hello, this is Maciej Mikos welcoming you to World News Tonight. Now let's take a look at the latest headlines. 15 Russian soldiers with ties to the Wagner Group have been disarmed and relieved from duty. France is celebrating Bastille Day, but authorities are extra cautious considering the recent riots. And for the first time in 60 years, Hollywood writers and actors are striking together. In July last year, the UN and Turkey brokered the Black Sea Grain Initiative with Russia and Ukraine to help alleviate a global food crisis worsened by Moscow's invasion and blockade of Ukrainian ports. Now, the European Commission is helping the UN and Turkey extend the grain deal and is open to exploring all solutions. Now, to find out more, let's go live to our correspondent Marek Styl-Zieliński, who's in Kiev. Hello, Marek. Can you tell us more about these new efforts to extend the deal?
So as the deadline is coming up, so that is Monday. On Monday, this grain deal brokered last year by the United Nations and Turkey will expire. So it seems that a lot of new players want to come across this problem and alleviate another possible food crisis. So the European Commission has entered the game and now is trying to help Ukraine in reaching this deal with Russia. So the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said today that the ball is in Putin's court. And of course, Turkey was a big part of this deal that allowed the exports of Ukrainian and Russian food products from Ukrainian ports that were occupied by Russia. So let's take a listen to what Recep Tayyip Erdogan said about this grain deal today.
As you know, we are in preparations to host Mr. Putin in Turkey in August, and we are in agreement that Black Sea grain corridor should be extended. Mr. Guterres from the UN also sent a letter to Mr. Putin. I hope that this letter and the joint effort by us in Russia, the grain corridor will be extended.
Right, so that was the Turkish president. And how is this issue perceived in Ukraine?
Well, Ukraine is very much eager to extend this deal, and President Zelensky confirmed this last night that the country wants an extension. And actually here in Kyiv, I spoke to a Ukrainian MP who told me more about this deal. So let's take a listen.
Russia is blocking grain corridors. It also took measures to prevent Ukraine from unloading grain shipments. In the meantime, the United States, Turkey and the EU are taking measures to help negotiate with Russia to reinstate a grain corridor. They help unload coal and distribute it by rail to other countries in Europe, using Poland as a transit station. Slovakia and Hungary too, even if we are having some problems with them. Ukraine is also taking measures to export grain using ports on the Danube River.
So Russia seems to be using this grain deal as leverage to reach a goal it wants to reach. So reconnecting one of its banks to the SWIFT system. This bank is related to operations with Ukrainian and Russian grain. So it seems that Putin is playing a game here and is using this grain deal as leverage. Back to you.
That was Marek Styl-Zieliński reporting from Kiev. Thank you very much, Marek. And following the recent mutiny by Wagner mercenaries, Russian army officials have carried out what appears to be a purge within their ranks. The suspected soldiers were questioned about their links to Yevgeny Prigozhin. In his recent press conference, the commander of the Estonian Defense Forces Intelligence Center, Colonel Margo Grosberg, announced that 15 Russian soldiers have been relieved of duty and disarmed because of their links to the Wagner Group. Among those detained are 3 high-ranking generals and former Russian Deputy Defense Minister, General Mikhail Mizintsev, whose whereabouts are yet unknown. Many of the soldiers in question are stationed in the occupied areas of eastern Ukraine, but are not involved in local fighting. Estonian intelligence suspects that Wagner's mercenaries are being convoyed from there to Belarus. Today, France is celebrating one of its biggest public holidays, known as Bastille Day. But in the wake of the recent riots, additional security forces have been deployed to ensure public safety throughout the celebrations.
Bastille Day on the Champs-Élysées, a commemoration of the storming of the Bastille. a key episode of the French Revolution. The holiday is perhaps most famous for its military parade. The display is meant to showcase France's military power.
I think it's an important moment. It's beautiful. With everything that's going on at the moment, to see them in uniform and applaud them. I think even for them, it's nice to see that they're supported.
This year, 250,000 policemen and gendarmerie have been deployed to provide security in the wake of the recent riots that rocked the country. Some French municipalities even imposed special curfews for minors to prevent looting and clashes with law enforcement. Even with the additional police presence, some spectators still felt like more could be done to ensure public safety.
Our bags were thoroughly searched. We weren't strip searched though. That's something I didn't understand. We could have walked around with anything.
Bastille Day was made a national holiday in 1880. The celebrations continue throughout the day and include concerts and parties. The festivities culminate in the evening, when the Paris sky is illuminated by a glamorous firework display.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was the guest of honor at today's Bastille Day celebrations in France. The visit is an important symbol of the French-Indian partnership.
Indian and French soldiers marched side by side at the Bastille Day parade. In attendance, the leaders of France and India.
Today I had the opportunity to take part as a guest of honor at France's National Day celebrations. I am happy that increasing the significance and beauty of this occasion, soldiers from all three units of India's armed forces took part in the parade. We also witnessed the flypast of Indian Rafale aircrafts.
India and France are looking to strengthen their cooperation in countering China's influence in the Pacific, as well as combating climate change. But they're also pursuing closer military cooperation. During the visit, India announced that it would buy 26 French Rafale fighter jets for its navy, along with 3 Scorpène submarines.
Today we are going to continue to strengthen this historic relationship of trust between our two countries in order to face both international crises and major global challenges. I think we share a common concern about the risk of fragmentation of the international community, particularly in the context of the war led by Russia and Ukraine.
The two countries are celebrating 25 years of their strategic partnership. Despite their differences, the two leaders wanted to demonstrate that they're looking forward to many more.
And we'll talk more about Modi's visit to France after the news with columnist Agaton Kozinski. The Korea-Poland Business Forum was held today in Warsaw. The event was part of South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol's official visit to Poland, which brought about a number of economic cooperation agreements between both states.
Representatives from a few dozen Korean firms traveled to Poland alongside Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol. Today, the Korea-Poland Business Forum gathered hundreds of entrepreneurs from both countries.
The strategic partnership between Poland and Korea is very important to our country. This year marks the 10th anniversary of the signing of the partnership agreements between our two countries.
Last year, trade between Poland and Korea reached a record-breaking $10 billion. Yesterday, Poland and Korea signed 3 agreements on investment and trade promotion, transportation, infrastructure development, and cooperation of the reconstruction of Ukraine. One key area of Polish-Korean cooperation involves the arms industry. Warsaw recently signed multiple defense procurements contracts with the Asian partner. The first Korean-made tanks, gun howitzers and fighter jets have already arrived in Poland. Meanwhile, the first batch of Chunmo launchers is scheduled for delivery this August.
In Spain, early voting has begun in the country's upcoming parliamentary elections, with record numbers of people casting their ballots by mail. The race is very tight, and the outcome is likely to be decided by coalition talks.
Crowds at post offices around Spain. In the coming elections, around 7% of registered voters will mail their ballots in, twice as many as in the previous elections.
I have been waiting to vote for about 40 minutes.
The elections are being held during the summer, when many Spaniards move out of the cities to the coast and countryside.
Last week, I filled in the whole application form, and I just got it home today, and I rushed here to submit it in order to have peace of mind before the trip.
We can guarantee that the system is absolutely safe, as we have been demonstrating throughout more than 30 years that we have been carrying out this process.
Opinion polls currently show the Conservative People's Party as the frontrunner, ahead of the ruling Socialists. The PP may not be able to secure a majority without forming a coalition with Vox, though. Vox, with its Eurosceptic message, has been gaining popularity.
Today, our internal sovereignty is being decided in Brussels, which is imposing a law on the restoration of nature with a very pretty name, but which is nothing more than a demolition of dams and destruction of the primary sector, poverty and ruin for our farmers.
Apart from growing domestic support, Vox also has some high-level international allies.
I am very sorry that I could not be there in person, but I am very happy to be able to contribute my message to the Vox election campaign.
The presidential parliamentary elections in Spain are planned for July 23rd.
You're watching World News Tonight. Coming up next. The European Union has lifted import restrictions on Japanese food. And temperatures soar as extreme heat wave sweeps southern Europe. The European Union will lift import restrictions on Japanese food imposed after the Fukushima power plant incident. The decision comes just weeks before Japan is set to release the wastewater from the power plant into the ocean.
Japan's decision may impact the everyday lives of many in the region. People like Young Min, a Korean mother of two, are preparing for every eventuality. Although her government agreed to the release, she believes it's better to be safe than sorry.
Once you throw this into the ocean, it becomes irreversible. After throwing it away, you can't retrieve it anymore, and if problems arise later on, it will be a belated regret.
Many around the world don't think any problems will arise. Like the European Union, which has let Japanese food flow freely once more. The EU has pretty harsh food import laws, so for many, this decision could be the sign they were waiting for.
We agreed to lift the remaining restrictive import measures that were linked to the Fukushima accident. We have taken this decision based on science and based on the proof of evidence.
Part of this evidence was IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi's visit to the power plant. He inspected the wastewater and called it safe to release. But
how much do I trust them?
Happy about the decision to let the waters from this power plant out. China says it will ban the import of Japanese food from a fifth of Japan's prefectures should the wastewater be dumped into the ocean. What's worse, Hong Kong, one of the biggest buyers of Japanese fish, is also poised to do so. And while Japanese and Chinese officials have met to discuss the matter, a breakthrough seems unlikely for now.
Platia, thank you for the subby, thank you.
F-16s
indeed. Have you seen the Hawks are getting to Ukraine?
Zimbabwe during a state visit today. The deals involve cooperation in fields like
I have it
energy,
saved, I'll have to show you.
infrastructure and technology.
With this visit, Iranian President
we're
Raisi's
getting the
African tour is
Hawks.
a wrap. It was the first time an
They're
Iranian
going
president
into
had visited
retirement
Zimbabwe
from Taiwan
since
and they're
2010.
going to
But
Ukraine
this wasn't just
probably.
another stop on the leader's itinerary. Both countries are united by one thing: American sanctions.
Our countries are against sanctions, and we believe that sanctions are a tool for the Americans, like a military tool that they use against nations.
Raisi's tour kicked off in Kenya.
There's
followed
also
by
news
Uganda.
about Iran.
It was preceded by a similar tour in Latin America in
35
June.
degrees.
Iran has been struggling under US sanctions for several years. It's been carrying out a diplomatic offensive in the last months, looking to shore up alliances with
We
some
had
like-minded
32.
countries.
It's
Russia, one of
disgusting.
Iran's
We're supposed to
closest
hit
partners,
35
has also
tomorrow,
recently
then
taken an interest
36
in
on
Africa.
Monday.
Its foreign minister completed his own tour earlier this year.
It's red warning right now. It says near record.
Thousands of people have gathered near the
Disgusting.
town of Grunwald, Poland, for the reenactment of one of the biggest medieval battles in history.
I'm
Our
going to
reporter
Grunwald,
Kazimierz
Poland.
Wyszek was there at the reenactment
Looks
village
cold
on the
there. I
eve
wanna
of
go
the
there.
battle and has this next report.
40?
We are here at the fields of Grunwald, where
How
a huge
were you when
battle
you
took
hit
place
40?
in 1410
How many
between
ACs do
the
you have?
alliance of Poland, Lithuania and Ruthenia, and the Teutonic Order, which mainly consisted of Germans of the
This
Holy
man
Roman Empire.
looks like a nerd,
now,
and I love
behind
him.
me you can see
He's
that the dress
beautiful.
rehearsal for tomorrow's battle, the reenactment, is currently
41
finishing. You can see
Celsius
the
in
hill where
Greece? What the
thousands
fuck?
of people will be gathering tomorrow.
How's
now,
your
this is
sister
a
alive?
huge
Is that-
festival. There are many people
Bro,
coming
how?
here in costumes from the medieval era. You can
30
really
during
feel
night?
the atmosphere here of the medieval ages. So you can see people dressed in armor, in
Bro.
traditional costumes and clothes from the
You
era.
make me scared for
and,
next
You
week.
can see stalls with meat, with wine, with traditional produce.
It's usually
really a
whatever
great
weather is in
festival where,
Germany, we
many
get
people
that
can find
few
something
days
for
later.
themselves, especially
So I'm
history
not too
buffs
happy
like myself.
about the Germans having 35 right now. And then I'm also not happy about you people reaching
All the
40.
attractions here and
I'm just
nights
fucking
are,
scared at this point.
an amazing experience, so we can experience the history that
What do you mean,
happened 600 years ago, and it's our heritage.
If I could give 20 degrees of Croatian weather to you,
because I'm taking part in
I would do it.
duels and group fights, so this is the main
If I
reason
could
why
give
I'm
30
here.
degrees of Croatian weather to you, I would do that.
Else has been doing for the last 2,000 years.
His name
We
is
come
Erasmus.
here every year from Lithuania, so it is
Ingrida.
very traditional for us and for our collective, and yeah, this is absolutely
How are
fun.
their names so cool?
Tomorrow's
What the fuck?
reenactment of the Battle
Those are
of
real
Grunwald
names?
will begin
That's so
at
cool.
3 p.m. Central European Time, so
Wish I was
stay tuned
named
for that. We
Ingrida.
will be delivering you. We will be showing you the battle
22
and
degrees
describing
at
what is happening.
the
And
bitch.
this will definitely be something.
I
a
envy you.
spectacle,
I envy you to
witness
death.
As hundreds of reenactors will be clashing on the fields behind me.
Tree
From
has
Grunwald
fallen,
for
smashed
TVP
3
World,
of our tomato
Kazimierz
plants
Wojciak.
in my friend's house. Oh
Something tells me
shit.
Poland will win again.
Oh shit, oh
Actor
shit.
Kevin Spacey testified today
We've
in
had
a London court where he stands trial on a dozen
hail.
charges of
I think
sexual
hail
offences
is
against
the
men.
word. Like when
Facing
ice is
questions
falling.
from the prosecution,
just a
this
few days
60
ago.
the 63-year-old
We're all right
actor
here, but the rest of
called the
Croatia has
allegations
had some
madness
horrible
and
luck.
said they made no
Also
logical
Slovenia,
sense.
but like it's
Our
Slovenia.
correspondent Klaudia Czerwińska has the story.
They had like 10
Here at Southwark Crown Court
ice
in London,
shots
Kevin Spacey
falling,
faced
and
a
it already
brutal
covered
round
the
of
whole
questions
country.
from the prosecutors today. The Hollywood actor is facing a dozen
Oh,
charges
damn,
of
it's
sexual
raining
assault
in
against
London.
4 men allegedly committed between 2001 and 2013 when he was living in London. Spacey, represented by Patrick Gibbs KC, was cross-examined by Christine Agnew KC and Shauna Ritchie under the watchful gaze of Justice Mark Wall. The actor pleaded not guilty, calling himself a big flirt, but claiming the encounters with 2 of the alleged victims were, in his words, comfortable and consensual.
Friend was
Spacey
in
appeared
Erasmus
visibly
with
way
some
more
people from
relaxed
Croatia, and
and
now she's
confident today
speaking
that he did
Croatian bad
yesterday
words with me, and
when
I
he
don't
fought
understand
back to
nothing.
tears as he said his
Is she
world
saying
had
kurac?
exploded under the heavy weight of
What she's saying, is it
accusations
kurac?
levied against him.
It's probably
One of
kurac, isn't it?
today's major takeaways was
Kurac is
Spacey's
the first one we
statement
teach
that he
foreigners.
did not use his power to get people to be romantic with him.
They say
and that
kurac.
he misread the signals from the 2 of the complainants. Spacey's confidence and barrister
always, it's
Agnew's
kurac,
persistent
pička sisa.
questioning led to more than
And
one
then you
heated
go on to like
exchange.
more
At one,
complex
the actor
ones.
questioned the validity of the charges brought against him. One of the things that makes this case different from other
Bro, they're
sexual
fucking
assault
killing me
trials
with
is
this,
that
you
the
know,
alleged
rain
victims are entitled
in
to
the
lifelong anonymity under
background.
the law.
This
The media
kills
is
me. I
not
hate
allowed
them
to
so much.
report
They're
the
doing
names
this on purpose.
and can only refer to them as complainants. After Kevin Spacey's
Eruptic?
questioning
I'm
ended,
actually
it was
not
time for the
crazy.
witnesses to take the
Let me check
stand.
him out.
The defense asked about Spacey's behavior and demeanor. The trial is going to continue on Monday.
It's
and
ASMR,
we'll be
but it's
having
like,
more
hey,
updates for you then.
I'm doing this
London,
ASMR to
Klaudia
torture
Czerwińska,
you.
TVP World.
America's multi-billion-dollar
I'm getting
TV
porn
and
when I
movie
Google
industry has ground to a halt after the Hollywood Actors Union
No matter
voted
how
to
I Google it,
strike, joining
I'm getting porn.
screenwriters and shutting down all productions. The current strike has already sent talk shows into endless reruns, disrupted most production for the fall TV season, and halted work on the big-budget
gaming
movies.
shit.
For the first time in many years, Hollywood is on strike. The actors and screenwriters accuse studios of refusing to bend on key issues, including higher payouts from streaming titles and clear limits on the use of artificial intelligence.
We are the victims here. We are being victimized by a very greedy entity.
Why does he
I
play
am
Escape from
shocked
Tarkov?
by the way the people that we have been in business with are treating us.
Apart from halting productions, the strike could result in actors not being allowed to promote their completed films.
It's such a critical moment in the life of the industry, not just for actors, but for everybody else in all the waves of the industry that this will affect. So it's a crucial moment. I know people are doing their best. I hope it's resolved as soon as possible.
The protest coincides with several big premieres, but actors underline their sense of unity.
Absolutely. No, I'm very much in support of all the unions, and I'm a part of SAG, so I would absolutely stand by that.
We wanted to come out and talk about it because we're really proud of it, and we worked really hard on it, and we wanted to, you know, everything was all set up, so we said, well, let's just do it, you know, and then if they call a strike, we'll go home.
The studios argue that the union's demands are unrealistic, given the challenges the entertainment industry faces, from streaming to fallout from the pandemic.
This is the first time in 60 years that we've seen both of these two very powerful unions go on strike simultaneously. And I think the impact, the economic impact on Hollywood is going to be phenomenal.
SAG-AFTRA represents about 160,000 actors, broadcast journalists, announcers, hosts, stunt performers, and other media professionals. Its walkout virtually shuts down the studio's remaining US-based productions and puts more pressure on media companies to find a resolution.
A heatwave continues to sweep across parts of Europe, with potentially record-breaking temperatures expected in the next few days. Scientists say spells of intense heat are becoming more frequent, more intense, and lasting longer due to global warming.
Acropolis, one of the biggest tourist attractions in Greece. In the summer, thousands of people visit it every day. But now it had to be closed down due to extreme heat.
It was really hot. I was sweating bullets up there, but yeah, it wasn't too bad right now. I'm sure.
I know, Gary. I hope you're okay.
Above everyone, but everyone's
Stay strong, Gary.
We were only up there for, I would say, like half an hour.
It's,
and
let me give you the spelling.
Done.
Kurats.
The Greek Red Cross has deployed teams to the Acropolis to look after visitors.
Well, yesterday we had 40 cases of people feeling dizziness.
I need to teach you Balkan so you can watch Balkan comedy videos with me.
Some of them had
That's what we need to do, really. That's what I need to do.
So we had to
I need to do like a speedrun of Balkan language.
Massive
So you can watch the
affecting several regions worldwide,
Madagascar
but Southern Europe
penguins
is experiencing a
Croatian
particularly
parody.
tough time. Weather like this can be fatal to many.
I need to make like transcripts of these videos into
Extreme
English,
heat is a danger
word
to
by
the
word,
health
you
of
know?
people
Two
suffering from chronic
hippies, shit.
diseases. They are usually elderly people
Actually,
with chronic debilitating conditions.
I saved a lot of shit for today's stream. But like, I wanna see at least part of that.
60,000 people have died across Europe
What's
last year
your
because of
opinions
the
on
heat.
hippies?
But as
What do people think of
temperatures
hippies?
rise, that number is
Do you
also
have some
expected
hippies
to follow
around?
suit.
We don't have hippies in Croatia. The culture was never here.
I don't think that the population in general is aware of how serious this is. Heat and cold together
Same
kill as
Taiwan.
many as air pollution. And this
I
is a
follow
reality
whenever
that
he
people
has
may
something
not be
big on
aware of.
YouTube, I watch it. But I've really been unable to watch his streams regularly these days because of work, and it makes me feel like shit.
Recent fire caused by the weather.
Talking about that though, I've
We
gotten
bought this
my
house a year ago and had been renovating it since. We finished
paycheck
10 days ago.
recently.
And now everything burned down.
So I'm planning
And what can I
to,
tell you?
if you
You
have
can see for
somebody very good
yourself.
The World Meteorological
places
Organization
to buy
declared
shit
June the
from,
hottest
let me
month on
know.
record.
I looked into St.
According to
Javelin yesterday.
forecasts, July
I'm
is on
planning
track
to order
top
some stuff
that.
from St. Javelin. I was planning to buy Stanenko's shit, but bitch only delivers to Ukraine.
Columnist Agaton
Oitina.
Kozinski to discuss Narendra's Modi's
I guess it's just easier to organize that way.
India. Hello, Agaton.
I'm gonna wait for him
I hear we
to
have
start
some,
international shipping. I want the Russophobia
technical
shit from him.
difficulties, so it will be.
My internet connection is very poor. That's why we are.
Yeah, but we can hear you. That's important.
Who are you talking to? I don't care about your
Nice to
coworker.
hear you too.
Can
Okay.
I get what Dylan said 2 days ago? I'll start to learn in Croatian right after you watch the 7th of the people in the original stream. Am I allowed to do that? Am I allowed to do that one? I'm not sure I'm allowed to do that. But we did have it on Croatian. Man, looks good. We did have it on Croatian TV. Or we're supposed to be having it. Oh, it's those two. Oh, I assumed hippies would be like some teenagers or whatever the fuck. Grown-ass hippies. Mama debated some grown-ass hippies exist. Gnomes is a good word to say. Make peace, not war. We're getting that here too. It's like, oh, I would rather have love than war. Like, yeah, everyone would, bitch. You think we kind of invited Russia to come and invade? Bitch, come on. We should all just come together, take LSD, and sing Kumbaya, and peace will arrive. Oh. Yeah, for some reason, people who use psychedelics tend to be really, really annoying. Full hate for the psychedelic users in chat. I think I have serious conversations about the use of psychedelics, like, not many times. I want to say 2 or 3 at most, with people who have actually used something. But every single time, without fail, they've been one of the most annoying fuckers in the universe. It's always people who believe that, like, you're going to take some shit and you're going to learn the secrets of humanity or whatever the fuck. It was like that Twitter meme where you take drugs and then you learn how empathy works. It's like that. Like, you think you found something actually profound and it's just nothing. You're just blubbering into nothing. So I'm a big hater. So if their idea is like we should all just take LSD and wait for peace, I could imagine that. I could imagine that because it is an opinion I have seen expressed by some streamers. I could imagine they unironically hold the view. I also fucking hate it, probably.
On a person who, you know, may have philosophical opposition to America involving itself in yet another war, that they are just kind of like, oh, you're just a Russian propagandist, you're a pro-Russian guy. I feel like I can simultaneously be against
I tried it once,
Russia's
I was like,
illegal
never
invasion
tried
of
it again.
Ukraine and against America's involvement in that conflict.
Well, yeah, I don't think anybody, just because they oppose aid or oppose American involvement, necessarily means they're in favor of the Russians. Now, there is a question to be brought about, like, what's the policy prescriptive difference between somebody who is in favor of the Russians as an American, like a pro-Russian American, and somebody who's just against involvement? There's not much of a policy.
Well, there is.
Okay, that's based.
I don't agree with that. I think that there is a policy. I
don't
mean,
believe in borders. Shit, those people get me annoyed.
You can't put me under the umbrella of a pro-Russian guy.
Well,
yes,
I'm not saying that it's as a policy prescriptive, because if somebody was, for example,
he didn't even answer. I'm already getting annoyed. He didn't even answer. Dylan's like, there's not a real policy difference, and this dude is like, oh yeah, of course there is. You can't call me pro-Russian. What's the policy difference, bitch? What's the difference? Why didn't you outline it if there's a difference? Surely that would have been a very easy thing to answer. Just like, say what's the difference between you and someone who actually supports Russia, because there's no difference.
I'm not saying that it's as a policy prescriptive, because if somebody was, for example,
well, if you were super pro, if you were pro-Russia policy would be like, we're arming Russia.
Right.
No.
Or Russia is justified.
We're providing material support to Russia.
Right.
And
Russia is justified in
continuing to do business with Russia in terms of, like, you know, economically and shit.
No, it's okay as a distraction, because I hate these people, so it's all right.
Like obviously, if we're pro-Russia, you know, slapping them with sanctions or anything like that, obviously, if we're pro-Russia, so that would be fundamentally different in terms of policy, I think.
I don't think necessarily it's true, because I know a lot of pro-Russian Americans who their main thing isn't saying we need to arm the Russians, it's we need to not arm the Ukrainians. The main purpose, definitely, of the Russians and the spreading of information in the United States, or what they want from American public. This is part of the reason why they've been upping the amount of, like, English language media they're trying to pump out into this space.
The Slav space.
Sure, those people would
support aid, and so
sure those people would oppose. Those same people would oppose sanctioning Russia, though.
Yeah, but I also don't know any pro-Russian Americans who are also in favor of sending weapons to Russia. They seem to primarily be focused on stopping weapons.
I mean, they probably just figure Russia has enough weapons to begin with, but
Which
they're
I assume
certainly,
that they do.
They're
Yeah.
certainly not going to.
I mean, to be fair, that is, yeah, it is. The pro-Russian position is Russia has enough equipment. The only reason why Ukraine is able to hold on for this long is because we have been supplying it, so we need to stop supplying it. This is the entire position. His whole thing of like, oh, if we were pro-Russian, we would be calling to arm Russia. No, because people who are pro-Russian genuinely believe that Russia does have the second strongest military in the world. They believe that Ukraine would have no chance winning if it was not supplied by the West. That's kind of like the whole thing about their bitching is the fact that they believe this war would have been done very, very quickly if we didn't do anything. So
support sanctions against Russia, which I would say I support the sanctions.
And they don't seem to support.
I also don't really feel like I'd be against
of any stripe.
I also don't really feel like I'm against giving aid.
No, I'm very much in favor of giving humanitarian aid.
Right, but like weapons seems a little odd.
No, it doesn't.
Why does weapons seem
odd? Because you don't know where those weapons are going to end up.
Yes, you do.
You don't know
in
if
Ukraine.
I mean, like, let's say you arm Ukraine, Russia wins, Russia takes over. You just armed Russia.
So you arm
Especially when
Ukraine
you're talking
properly.
about sending like jets.
I mean,
So Russia doesn't win.
I'll take this a step further. I would, you know, I don't know this for an absolute fact, but I would bet, you know, my salary for a year that Ukrainian people have already been killed. Okay, yeah, I'll bet it to TJ that Ukrainian people have already been killed by weapons that were sent to Ukraine and seized by Russians.
Oh, I mean, that's almost certainly true. But I mean, that's true of any weapon shipment to any country, period, in any war. Like,
Which is that's one of the reasons why I oppose it.
Well,
that also makes no fucking sense. This is like when they pretend to be worried about cluster munition. Holy shit, I'm getting so angry over this. It's like when they pretend to be worried over cluster munition, and it's like, oh, we're sending cluster munition, so Ukrainian children are going to be dying from stepping on unexploded munition 10 years into the future. Like, bitch, there's an invasion ongoing. Children are just chunked into mass graves. And your biggest issue is that if we send enough weapons to Ukraine to defend itself and kick the invaders out, 10 years into the future, this ammo is going to be danger to kids? You think the ammo Russians are using is not going to be danger to kids? You think what? They're going to, like, take over Ukraine and what, clear it up? Dude, just... Oh, we send weapons to Ukraine, so maybe some Ukrainians die as a result of these weapons being used, therefore sending weapons to Ukraine is bad? Bro. Is a country the single organisms? It reminds me of that one saying, was it in Skadefron's chat? The one who said that, oh, like, why is Ukraine even fighting? The only thing that would happen to them if Russia takes over is that they would be Russians now. They would not be Ukrainians. But it's not really a difference that would... It's not really something that would make a difference on their day-to-day life, whether they are Russians or Ukrainians. So, like, why is Ukraine even fighting? Why don't they just give up? It reminds me of that. It's like you don't know what you mean by all of this. You're not really seeing the actual issue. So many things can go wrong. The world is really unpredictable, you know, and we don't really know anything. Anything is possible. Nobody can predict. After saying, I'm quoting, Ukraine is destined to lose, it reminds me of, what's his name? The Hobbit in Anastasia debate. The Hobbit, he made a claim at one point, which was like, oh, how was it? We shouldn't be saying that if Russia takes over Ukraine, it's going to do a genocide. We shouldn't be saying stuff like that because you can't predict the future, right? Yeah, I don't have a crystal ball. Yeah, stuff like that. Constantly, like, I can't predict the future. But then several times in his arguments, he does pretend to predict the future. He does pretend to know what's going to happen. But when the conversation is about Ukrainian future casualties, because of course there's going to be Ukrainian future casualties, holy shit, we're already seeing casualties in Ukraine. Like, the reason Bucha happened is because Russians thought they would be able to hold on to that part and that they would never be discovered doing war crimes. At the time when they did Bucha, they legit thought that they are going to reach Kyiv soon. They never thought they're going to be kicked out. So the idea that, like, oh yeah, Russians were willing to do war crimes in so many different places, but they would not be doing them in more places if we allow them to take them over quicker. The fuck do you mean? At the height of what was their illusion of possible victory in this war, they were doing war crimes. They were executing civilians. It was the time when they thought they are going to have a nice and quick entrance into Kyiv. And we're supposed to somehow pretend like they wouldn't do war crimes in the rest of the country if they actually did have a quick and easy entrance to Kyiv? Like, come on.
I don't know. I don't think that's... I think that's a weird reason to oppose it because, for me, my main focus here, definitely after coming here and seeing a lot of this stuff on the ground, is trying to isolate the population from the Russian occupation and trying to isolate the population as much as possible from the worst brutalities of the war. And I believe that the only way that's possible is through upping the ability for the Ukrainians to keep the Russians back from their cities.
Is that the only way possible?
Well, can I give you an example?
Sure.
So I went to Kharkiv, I think it was mid last year, and this was during the end of the Kharkiv counteroffensive. This was a breakthrough that the Ukrainians did. It was the first major counteroffensive which proved that them pushing back the Russians from Kiev wasn't a fluke, but that the Ukrainians, actually have the ability to push the Russians back. And before, when I first went there, during the end of that counteroffensive, they were bombing the city's electrical infrastructure. We had to take cover into different buildings and destroyed buildings multiple times as they were striking the city's electrical grid, as they were striking the city's civilian infrastructure, as they were striking
this is what
apartment blocks.
happens. This is what happens during an invasion, right?
Yeah, they were using artillery en masse.
Also, the normalization of this. This reminds me of IOC. We need to have a conversation on IOC. I think I actually saved a post on this. Sorry that I'm switching the topic, but I just remember this. If you remember the IOC report we read on the last stream, and in one part of this report, they're like, oh, it's so interesting that people are fighting against Russia being at the Olympic Games, but at the same time, people are not against other countries participating in the Olympics, and there's 70 different conflicts in the world. They purposefully worded it like that because you can't compare these other 70 different conflicts to what's happening between Russia and Ukraine. There's specific numbers on this. I would need to find the numbers on it. But specifically, I believe most of them are inter-country conflicts. Only a few of them are international. Russian invasion of Ukraine being the only one where you have a country actually invading its neighbor, attempting to annex the territory and attempting to genocide the people. You don't really have this happening often around the world, especially not right now. It's just not a thing that really happens. But they're trying to make it seem like it happens more often because they're trying to normalize it. They're trying to make it like a thing that isn't really a big deal. And in the same way, that's what he is doing when he goes, oh, that's what happens during an invasion. Yeah, that's a reason for you to condemn Russia. That's a reason for you to hate on Russia with all of your being. And that's a reason for you to want to arm Ukraine so they can stop this invasion. Just going, oh yeah, that's just what happens during an invasion. How the fuck do you reach that brain rot to say something like that so casually? This invasion was unjustified. The suffering is unjustified. You can't just go, oh yeah, this is what happens, as if the invasion is somehow a natural event to occur and as if it wasn't deliberately done by Putin to attempt to stay in power. So, stupid little bitch.
To shell the city. And what happened after that counteroffensive had completed is the amount of shelling that Kharkiv saw drastically went down because the Russians were no longer in range. They physically could no longer bomb Kharkiv, and that was the only way Kharkiv found some relative level of peace. And I got back from Kharkiv, I think a month and a half ago. I'm going back to Kharkiv in 2 days. I'm going to be going up there in that area to film with artillery crews. I can't say much more than that, but I'm going to be filming with artillery crews in that area. And the city, it's like a night and day transformation. The amount of people that have come back, I would say like tens of thousands, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 people have come back to the city. It's a lot more vibrant, a lot more economically active, and people feel safer. And that is only possible with the weapons that were provided to the Ukrainians to push back the Russian army. Armored vehicles that are necessary to, be the spearhead to push the Russian army back from these cities. I was in Mykolaiv during the start of the Kherson counteroffensive, and what the city was like before and after the Kherson counteroffensive was successful, stark difference. I was in the city when they were just shelling the city center, peppering it with artillery, killing civilians indiscriminately before the counteroffensive, and then afterwards, they no longer could do it. And so Mykolaiv since then hasn't been shelled. And so that's how I think the element of how weapons contributes to the well-being of Ukrainians is undercut, because it's only with these weapons that you can guarantee concretely that the Russians won't be shelling your cities, or you can push them back ever so slowly from these major population centers.
It's not my kind of problem with your perspective is not that it does, I agree. You give weapons to people that are in need of them, they're going to use those weapons to defend themselves with it. My problem is not with that. It is with the
my
idea
problem is with the fact I'm retarded.
There isn't a way, because if your biggest goal here, and I don't
He's stumbling so much. Can we just... I know someone mentioned it yesterday, like on the last stream, like the debate tactics and everything that people are using, but he is stumbling so hard. He's trying so hard to right now change the topic to something else, because he just now figured out that his entire view on this was bullshit. He just discovered it. He was ready to die on this hill, and now he looked at the hill and it's actually just horseshit piled up. And now he's being like, oh shit, I gotta jump to another hill, and he's trying to figure out what it is. He legit, he can't say that Dylan's correct, because that would be betraying his stupid ass audience, which probably has the same idiot views as he does, and I can only hope that these two people both have like one person watching them, and that's all. But he can't say he agrees fully, so he's trying to figure out a way to like go around the point. Yeah, realizing his cognitive dissonance is on display, absolutely. And now he's like, I gotta respond to this in a way that like, I don't seem to be implying he's incorrect, because it's very easy for him to prove he is correct. But at the same time, I gotta stick to my story, because this is the persona I built around myself. It reminds me of, and I'm actually kind of happy to see this man like shit himself. He's doing a Putin right now. That's why it's like this image instead of his live cam. But it makes me a bit happy he's doing this. It reminds me very much of the Anastasia debate, where people would skip the part of the dialogue tree in which they would mention Russian-speaking Ukrainians being mistreated. So when they speak to Anna, they don't go to this part of the dialogue tree because Anna is a Russian-speaking Ukrainian, and they are aware that like you can't say this. She's going to call you out. She's going to call you out on your bullshit. She's been living there. She's been speaking Russian. She knows. So sometimes you hear it that they're like trying to justify Russia's reason for invading, but you can't bring up the lie about Russia wanting to save Russian-speaking Ukrainians, because you have a Russian-speaking Ukrainian right here, right now, who's going to call it out as being a lie. And you as an American are going to look stupid as fuck in that situation. And I think right now he's realizing that, hey, I'm in a call with a person who actually has experience on the ground in the country. And it's very easy for me, someone who's sitting on his fat ass, who the fuck knows where in the world, it's very easy for me to look stupid when I'm having a conversation with a person who's actually there. So he's trying to not just like dance around his own stupidity, but also trying to find a point he can bring up that is not easily proven wrong by someone who is in Ukraine right now. When they say they are against aggression but don't want to talk about the start of the war, oh shit, that too. He gets mad. A
Here's
hippie.
this. You said preserving democracy was preserving Ukrainian democracy.
See, like he jumped. He jumped. He was like using weapons bad because weapons have been hurting some Ukrainians. And then Dylan goes like, no, but using weapons is actually absolutely okay. And using weapons is the only way to save civilian population. Dude goes, how is that the only way? Dylan explains it. Dude realizes that using weapons actually is a good way to save Ukrainian civilian population from Russians. And now he's being like, well, democracy then? He's trying to find another point that he can be bringing up. It's just, it's very cheap. It's very stupid. I think it's kind of what makes me kind of angry about debates. I don't know, because I very much doubt. I would love to know who these people are. I'm going to try and find their socials to see if they commented on this debate in any way. But you just know fuckers like these. It's going to be like Fabian after Anastasia debate, in which Fabian presented himself as the winner. These fuckers are going to be presenting themselves as the winners, even though they look stupid as fuck.
But if your biggest goal, and I like to think my biggest goal is preserving human life. Mm-hmm. I'm a border abolitionist. I don't think Ukraine should exist. I don't think Russia should exist. I think at this point in history,
also this like that. It's like you're having these viewpoints that is useless to anything. I think by being stupid enough to enter a serious conversation and share this as if it matters, you already have lost any sort of credibility. No one cares about your stupid ass dystopian views. It's like when people go, I wish we could just abolish money or whatever. Who the fuck cares? It's never going to be done. Why do you think anyone gives a shit about this? It would be different if they were having like a, what would be the word? Like philosophical discussion? You know, like if you sit at the table with another person and you're like, hey guys, I wish we never had money. You know, I wish we could just abolish money, and instead of having money for doing transactions, we would just like do stuff for each other. And you could debate about which option would be better for society, but it's all hypotheticals. It's all like philosophical bullshit. you're entering a real conversation about a real war right now, a real invasion happening, and you bring up like you wouldn't like borders to be existing. Who the fuck cares about this shit? So I just don't know the stupidity to even bring this up. This man would be laughed out of any serious conversation.
Face the fucking grim future together if we're to have a fucking chance.
7-year-old in a common man's body, yeah, like that, like that.
Poor working class people and poor working class people killing one another so that oligarchs can benefit on both sides of the issue.
This also fucking stupid point, and I know Zach has brought this point a few times, and I hate the point every time he brings it up. It's one of the most, I think, despicable retellings of this thing. The idea that oligarchs on both sides have pushed for this war, it's bullshit. It reminds me of people saying that we should just take Zelensky and Putin out in a field and they should be battling it out. It's placing them on an equal ground. This is a war that Russia started. This is not a war Ukraine wanted to start. This is a war that Ukraine worked really, really hard to try to avoid. Pretending like, oh, just oligarchs on both sides benefiting while young people die, that's bullshit. Not even to mention that like young people are dying for some very different ideals. The amount of young people volunteering on both sides is very, very different. The result of fighting in a way that what you see accomplished by Ukrainian side is saving the civilian population from harm. What you see accomplished by Russian side is taking over fucking cities and doing war crimes. It's completely different. You can't possibly be pretending that these two are equal. But then also like the idea of saying, oh, these are just young working class people who are now being sacrificed. I don't know. I don't know. It just kills me. It kills me so much. It's like, oh, solidarity with the working class. Bro, there's one side, one state whose shit culture, and as a result of this shit culture, shit government has started this. And it's the same side which started a war in Chechnya and started the war in Georgia. Come on. Even if we take the claim that it's young working class people dying on both sides, you can't possibly be blaming both sides equally for starting of this. You have a side which has a history of starting wars to keep Putin in power. Both I do wonder, now that I think about it, I wonder if they would be talking about Chechnya the same way, or even like Georgia. I wonder if they would see that the same way. Poor person, in a nutshell. Killing is bad, so stop killing and Russia wins. Did I do it? Russia killed a lot and now Ukraine can't kill back because killing is bad. Actually, yeah, we read about it last stream. The dragon parable. The dragon parable of Soviets about... it was written in a way to mock totalitarianism of the Russian state. But then over time it also took the... notion of you becoming what you are fighting. So the man is trying to fight against a dragon who is currently controlling the city, right? The man is trying to fight this dragon, but in fighting the dragon, he becomes the dragon himself. Then he tries to leave the post of a dragon, but another man takes the position of the dragon. So the evil is always there, and in fighting evil, you will become evil, and you will never be able to actually take it out. It's the idea that has been used to, how would I say this, to lessen the moral high ground of Ukrainian side of this war for a very, very long time. It's the side, if you remember Arestovich making a comment that with mocking a Russian soldier who got eaten by a shark, you are no better than Russians. It's that. It's saying that you can't mock evil without becoming evil. You can't kill evil without becoming evil. You can't praise the explosions of Russian soldiers without becoming equally as bad as they are, which absolutely is not true. Absolutely, it is not true. By the virtue of not being a part of a genocidal invasion, you already are better than every single one of them. No matter what sort of stupid-ass IG comments you make online, by the virtue of not actively participating in a genocide, you already are better. The idea that you are becoming equally as bad as them is just meant to specifically discourage you from fighting against them. It's meant to discourage you from ever being mean to the evil ones. And it's just, yeah, no, fucking weird. trapped Ukrainian force all took mushrooms to escape a minefield and everyone survived. Moral of the story, take all the mushrooms. Maybe that too. I got a friend in Russia. She was like, oh no, our soldiers are dying. How sad. I was like, what about Ukrainian civilians? I don't give a fuck about invaders, kill them all. Fucking based. Fucking based. It's like a conversation I had. Oh shit, I didn't tell you guys. My mother came back from Germany yesterday. But she met a Russian there. He's actually working as something. He's supposed to be like teaching my sister-in-law how to do some job. And he's going to be, you know, possibly losing the job very soon because he got his military summons to go back to Russia to fight. He actually is from Kyrgyzstan, but he's coming with a Russian organization, as much as I've understood. He got the job through like Russian middleman, so he had to apply in Russia and do all of his paperwork there. But such a weird thing, because she was like, oh yeah, he seems kind of confused, he seems kind of like lost in his thoughts. I wonder if they're going to send him to the front, and if they send him to the front, like, I wonder what's going to happen to him. And I was just like, bro, he's going to get exploded. That's what's going to happen to like every single one of them. Why do you think he's going to have a different fate? Especially when we talk about a relatively young boy from fucking Kyrgyzstan. That man's getting sacrificed in the front lines. The idea of him going there is stupid as fuck. He's doing this whole thing with like, oh yeah, I need to be going because I've got family in Russia and they may be sending my family off to Siberia. Dude, come on. I don't know, the idea that they could trace the family of every single Russian who refused to come from aboard for a draft and then ship them all off to Siberia, it seems silly. I very much doubt that they could afford sending that many people off to Siberia without just completely crumbling their economy. At this point, they're lacking workers. You want to be lacking even more workers by sending these working people off to Siberia as punishment for someone who didn't come back from for military? Like, can you even afford that as a country? But also, you come back, they don't send your family to Siberia, you come back, you go there, you get exploded on the front line, and what happens? Your family gets what? Circus tickets? Bro. They barely send people in jail for refusing to go to Ukraine. Yeah, I'm very much not buying the idea he will be seeing these types of consequences if he doesn't go. It doesn't seem likely. It doesn't seem likely. I understand fearing the state in a way. I don't even know how much I understand fearing the state. If you're like a Russian at this point, feels like you should have understood it, you know. It's as much scary domestically as it was scary globally, in a way that we all assumed they have a lot more power and that they are willing to exercise their power in a lot more violent ways than they actually are. It's like the whole illusion of is Russia going to use a nuke? I feel about it very much the same way. Like, they can't do this. They can't afford to do this shit. Sack of potatoes, maybe that too. If you're lucky, you get that shit. They will never feel any empathy towards them. They can't even pretend they do it for foreigners. I do feel like it's very similar to these types of people, to be honest. Born in Lviv and she's anti-war. I don't know why she's dumb. Bro, got no idea. Maybe it's one of those cases of like, oh, I'm feeling empathy for everyone. I support Ukraine anyways, but like I'm feeling empathy for everyone. I'm against mocking. I've seen some fellas like that. It's the opinion that like I'm not sharing, but I see why people might take it. The whole thing with like, oh yeah, I'm feeling empathy for Russians who are sent to the front line, you know. I'm not really feeling too much. I feel like I'm coming from the position of like, you know, if I'm going to be having some feelings, especially if they're to the sort of feeling sad or feeling empathy towards people, I'm going to, you know, turn to Ukrainian civilians who are suffering as a result of this. I'm absolutely not going to be wasting time nor emotions mourning fucking invaders. They can all get blown up. But I can understand that some people are like not, you know, not willing maybe to overlook that part of the war. I don't know, as long as they are supporting Ukraine properly, I'm like, yeah, okay. Cry over whoever you want, as long as you are, you know, funding to get them blown up so you could cry about them. Brush my teeth, invaded the country, did war crimes, went to a store. Yeah, it's like when he says, oh, this is all just part of an invasion, you know, it's like that. It's like that. Oh yeah, civilians got killed, civilians got exploded during sleep, children got blown up. It's what happens during an invasion, you know, man. How is that by itself not a reason for you to fucking despise Russians for starting this fucking invasion? I don't know. How do you reach the point of being this rotten?
And when I look at it from that perspective, would there have not been a better way to preserve life in Ukraine via diplomacy? For example.
Also bullshit. Oh, okay, he's going for an example. Okay, what's he going to do? Respecting the Minsk deals. What else? The peace deal that Boris Johnson broke. Maybe that. Respecting the Russian-speaking Ukrainians, but I don't know how much he knows about Dylan and how much he knows about Anna. So I don't know if he would dare to use that one.
Example, ceding some territory in eastern Ukraine to Russia.
Oh, ceding it's even worse than all of the examples I've had. You don't cede territory to people who did war crimes on territory they thought they were going to be having. You don't fucking cede territory to them, especially like now that we know that they're doing filtration camps. We know there's mass graves being dug up in the occupied territories. You don't fucking cede territories to Russians. Babchenko did on the theme of hatred, good Russians, dehumanization. Wish it was translated. Fuck. Yeah, if you have the link, I would love to see it. Maybe someone translates it once in the future, in the next few days. Babushka dies in Kiev suburbs because no heat and electricity in winter. I sleep. Chmobik catches Vogue, real shit. But basically, yeah. I've seen a woman today. I don't know how many of you people follow the Twitter for memorials of civilians who have been killed as a result of this invasion. But today they published one on this woman who she was right next room to her husband when Russian artillery killed him. And she's so sad in that. And she talks about how, she wanted to have a long life with him. And they were married for 60 years. But I don't know. It makes you so angry. They're inflicting so much pain and everything, right? And then you see this fucker being like, oh yeah, maybe they should have just ceded territory to Russia. Which in first place, that is not what diplomacy is. That would be appeasing the aggressor. The idea that you could solve this invasion by diplomacy, by ceding territory, means that you are normalizing the aggression. The invasion shouldn't have happened in the first place. He is having the expectation of diplomacy from Ukraine specifically. Why is he having no expectations of diplomacy from Russia? Unless he is coming from the position I am coming from, which is that Russians are fucking idiots and should be exploded in spot whenever they cross over the border to Ukraine, and that is the only way to deal with them. I could understand that. Like, you're not expecting diplomacy of them because you're barely aware if they can even spell diplomacy. I could see that, but in any other situation, I don't know why you would be having these unrealistic expectations for Ukraine. Give over your territory to a nation invading you, doing war crimes on your territory. Just give this land to them. Why wouldn't you just give this land to them? We're going to hate you for not giving land to them, but we're not going to hate them for invading in the first place? Old woman nearby Bucha who outlived occupation but slipped because there was no light in the winter, hit her head and died. Shit. Oh shit. Yeah, no, that would suck. That would absolutely fucking suck. If Trump wins, I don't even know if it is, but it's because it's next year, so I don't know how to say it. I don't know what I expect from next year. I don't necessarily think, wait, I'm gonna save the video. I don't necessarily think that Ukraine will lose, do I want to say enough support to ensure it's going to go down? I'm not sure about that. It is, something that I think it's too muddy of a future right now, and I don't really think that we can properly know what's going to happen. But I am wondering with, improving powers of European Union, and then with Ukraine itself developing some technology, and then also with Russia getting weaker, I do wonder if this would bring enough of an effect. So if Trump does win, we don't really have that big of an issue. So I'm hoping. Russia is bad, but at least it's not Serbia. Hey, have you seen USA sanctioned one of Serbia's officials? Vulin got sanctioned. I don't know if you remember Vulin. This is one. Vulin is the one who did that interview once with one of the Western newspapers. Who was it? In which he said that if there were no NATO, we would have Greater Serbia. I always talk about that story, about like a failure of journalism. He said if there was no NATO, we would be having Greater Serbia. And the newspapers in question, quite pro-Russian ones, I can't remember which ones, I'll need to find them. They presented it as like, oh yeah, Vulin just said that NATO bombing made Serbia a weak country, and they presented it as like, oh yeah, NATO wanted to bomb Serbia because NATO was actually fearing the rise of anti-USA sentiment that was happening in Yugoslavia, and was fearing having a USSR ally so close to Europe, which by the way, we hated USSR at the time, but okay. But they presented it as like Serbia would be greater, as in Serbia would be better if NATO didn't bomb it. But the way he meant it was Serbia would be greater, as in we would be having our imperialist dream of Greater Serbia. That's what he meant. And they didn't figure it out because whoever was the journalist at the time, they didn't know what Greater Serbia is. They didn't know what it means, but Greater Serbia is basically the idea that Serbia should be having a claim to all of the lands it wants to take. It's like Greater Hungary. Also imperialism, wet dream of Hungarians. They are going to be able to, control all of the lands they see as Hungarian. So it's, a complete fucking failure overall. If there was no Serbia, there will be Greater Yugoslavia. Look, Yugoslavia without Serbia, actually, we might have been chill. I'm just saying we might have been Switzerland by now.
Sure.
And instead, we got
engaging in real, honest, good
balkanization.
With regards to diplomacy in Russia, which I don't think happened. I don't think that the United States...
Yeah, again, he's doing the thing. We should have been diplomatic. But you already are starting from a position of Russia started this invasion. Russia took over territory of Ukraine. How do you then come to, oh, we should have been diplomatic with them? Why would you be okay with someone coming in and attempting to take another country's lands? Not even to mention the war crimes, but like, why would you be pretending this is normal? Why would you... Are you not aware how many wars we would be having right now? Greater Serbia and Greater Hungary just being two of the examples of imperialist dreams that these countries would try to make real if we make annexation of your neighbor's territory a normal thing to do. It is not something you want to encourage. If you are for peace in the world or whatever the fuck, it is not something you want to encourage. That is not something that you should be supporting. Great Lechia, what is that one? What is that one? Does that one also take part of Croatia? Because so far all of them have taken parts of Croatia. Oh, damn. Oh, damn, really? Oh, look, this one does take Croatia. Okay, I'm taking this one as based because it takes Croatia and I want to be part of something greater. Fucking cool. Good luck with it. When you try to start to attempt it, let me know. kick in his front door, take over 20% of his house, then break all his shit and throw a bunch of fireworks into the rest of the house. Then demand he not call the police and negotiate instead. He needs to be diplomatic with me. Also, who was it? Wasn't it Dylan? Which one debate bro was it? Having a debate with that one pacifist. And she basically said that she would not be calling the police on someone because she would see calling the police as an act of violence. So then he was like, okay, I'm just like gonna break into your house and steal your shit now. What you gonna do? And she was like, nothing. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna return tomorrow and I'm gonna steal more of your shit. And then I'm gonna return tomorrow and I'm gonna steal more of your shit. And like every single time you try to rebuild something, I'm gonna break it again and I'm gonna steal more of your shit. And just forever, every single day, you're going to be coming back home from work and you're going to see some new shit broken and then some new shit stolen. And it's going to just keep on happening. And you can't respond because you're a pacifist. And she made a claim on Twitter. She tried to cancel culture him because he was threatening her. Take 40, shit everywhere, give 20% back. Oh crap, that too.
Ever, in good faith, sat across from Russia and tried to find a real hard diplomatic solution to this problem.
So, as for the border, I'm not a border abolitionist. I'm much more, I guess, of a normie.
That's because Dylan has a brain, unlike whoever the fuck this is.
This issue, but whether or not you believe borders should or
I
should
kind of
not,
like he has these like things on his glasses. Now that I think about it, isn't this a thing that happens on your TV when it like breaks down and isn't working properly? Because that's what's going on inside his skull. This is like a microscope, and you're just seeing straight through his eyeballs.
not be real. Where that line is at the end of this war is going to have a very real effect on how the civilians of that local population live. Recently, the Russian government introduced legislation. It was an executive order by Putin, which made it so that if you don't accept a Russian passport in occupied territory, you can be physically removed from your homes and deported, and then they can take your property and they can give it to Russian settlers. They can remove your ability to have property rights in the communities and towns and cities that you grew up in. There's a decent chance you might be detained. There's also a really decent chance, and people don't talk about this enough, they'll be tortured. And the torture is very, very bad. The reports that I'm getting out of friends who went to Izium, who went to these locations that have been famous for the type of like torture that went on there. Electroshock, breaking of knees, breaking of fingers, like genital
made
mutilation.
this a joke, but
like
then ultra-nationalists came.
disgusting stuff. And so whether or not you
to be fair,
want
those
a
types of people aren't
borders to be
always
real or not, where that line is drawn is going to be the difference between
caring about what's realistic.
Torture
might be a good way to say it.
Losing of property rights.
Torture, deportation, genital mutilation. These are all things that happen in war. It's why I am a principled anti-war leftist. But
they also have.
See, how are you anti-war? If you want to appease the side which started the war, you want to congratulate the side which started the war. If you were anti-war, surely the thing you would be doing is punishing whoever wants to start a war and whoever attempts to start it. How can you be anti-war and then be like, oh yeah, this side started a war, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give them some shit. I'm gonna give them a little prize. I'm gonna give them a little award for starting this war. Yeah, GG Russia. Huh. You started this war. Bravo, here you go. Here's more land than you had before starting the war. Surely this will not mean more countries start wars in the future. How are you even that stupid? I don't know. I thought I would be angry at him. I'm feeling rotten on the inside at this point. Break your toilet bowl with a sledgehammer so it runs constantly and floods the house. Then start fucking around with something radioactive. Holy shit, yeah, those two. And then also the neighbors there to come and try to help the person. You gotta cry about yourself being the victim. Hey neighbors, why are you helping the owner of this house? Do you actually hate me? Is that what you're doing? Are you hating on me? The only reason I went into his house and shat all over it and broke everything is because you people hate me. That is the reason why I'm here in the inside. You made me do this. Playing Taylor Swift in the background. Dracophobes, yeah. anti-war, and that means I cave to anybody even threatening with war. Yeah, like how are you? Why do you still believe you're anti-war? What in the world makes you think you're anti-war when you are rewarding the side starting a war? How?
And during the
Where's the
quote-unquote peace
brain?
period. In occupied Crimea, during the peace times, Crimean activists were
To be
found
fair,
dead,
this angry
bodies floated
man does
down
not
the
have a
river.
mustache,
In these
so I think in
communities,
these
they
types
used
of
to be
people's
technically
brains, it's like,
Ukrainian territory. They used to have legislative representation.
It's like, you know what it is? It's like, you know Perry the Platypus? That meme when Doofenshmirtz sees a platypus and he's like, this is just a normal platypus. And then the hat comes on and he's like, Perry the Platypus! I guess for these people it's like that, but it's with mustache. Like they see Putin and they're like, this is just a normal dictator. But then if you draw a little mustache on him, they will be like, this is a genocidal dictator. Even though he's doing exactly the same thing. Genocidophobia.
The Crimean community before the Russian takeover, and their
Were there not violent incursions by Ukrainian people against people who identified as Russian in the Donbass?
No.
Were there what do you mean by like a violent?
Was there no violence like you're describing?
Oh, there was violence. Of course, there was like street level violence. There have been instances of war crimes on the Ukrainian side as well. That's absolutely
he means
true.
after the invasion.
But when you look at the vast majority of the evidence, on one level,
I thought
it's
he would
because
be
the
like
Russians
before.
just have more power. They have a bigger army, they have more soldiers, they have more bombs. So their ability to do war crimes and do atrocities is just astronomically larger than what the Ukrainians have the ability to do. But also, the way that the Russians have engaged when it comes, for example, cluster munitions usage. The New York Times has reported that the Ukrainian military has used cluster munitions in like March and April of like 2022. So this isn't like a new phenomenon.
To
that
be
is being
fair,
introduced by
also,
the Biden
as much
administration.
as I don't understand why he is talking to these people, I think Dylan is the best person to be talking to them. I have no idea why he is so calm all this time. Is this what happens when you like grow up in USA and you deal with so many fucking weirdos daily? You see so much shit that you're just kind of existing normally as a person. I don't know, because like, guys, be fair on this. If you were in a conversation with these fuckers, you would be using, like, at least 3 slurs right now, and you would probably, like, stop the call. He's the best person we could have representing us on this. He's doing really, really good job. He has really, really good arguments. I don't know why he has the willingness to do this, but he does it. It's impressive. It's genuinely impressive. Yeah, that too. I guess you have to mature rather quickly, especially like when you go to, you go to fucking Ukraine during a war happening. I don't know. I guess you have to kind of arrange your mindset to be able to stay well, and I don't know if it's a result of this. It's really, really impressive to me how calm he stays during all of this. I think it's great we have him here. He's doing a great job. It's amazing to have him on our side. I was watching this constantly shit talking in chat. That's what I was doing when he and Anna had a debate with those fuckers. I was just in chat and being like full of shit, because it's amazing he does it. I could never, maybe on like 3 beers and 20, kilos of weed, maybe, and not even then. I don't know how he is so calm, but it's great that he is, and I think he's doing good representation. I also think there's something about, there's a word for this. I don't even know if it's calmness. Maybe it is. You know what it is? You know, like how I'm against debates? I know I've said it last time that I'm against these types of debates. I think the problem is usually with debates, they're done for a dramatic effect. So what usually you have in debates is you have people from all sides screaming at each other, right? You have like two people, mostly, making stupid ass points and then getting really dramatic and then making really strong claims and using insults and everything, and then it all just kind of becomes a circus show and the point of the debate is lost in it, and it feels very dehumanizing when the topic is Ukraine. Several debates I couldn't watch until the end because it becomes too much after a while. You just realize none of these people actually give a shit about people in Europe. They don't care about you. They couldn't give less of a shit about you. Especially visible with Trump fans for some reason. They're like really, really bad with dehumanizing. But it feels like in these types of debates, the way Dylan's been doing them recently, he's just kind of staying calm. He's doing things very factually. He's really good at bringing people, back to the proper topic. I think he just comes out looking really good out of them. And as a result, I think the whole drama part of the debate is lessened because you have someone being very reasonable, having really good responses to all of the claims made by the other side. Like, he's staying on topic. He's not losing the topic or whatever. He's not being smug and, changing the questions or whatever. He's staying on the topic. He has really, really good responses, and he's staying calm. So from his side, you don't see the drama of the debate. I think that's good. If the topic has to be in debates, if the topic of Ukraine has to be going through these like Twitch politics bullshit things, I'm happy he is the one representing it. I think is a way to say it.
But the way
we're sending more.
Yeah, we're sending more.
I think that's
we are
the
sending more.
contention.
But the difference in how the Ukrainian military has used cluster munitions and the Russian military has used cluster munitions is also starkly different. With the amount of cluster munitions used on the Russian side and heavily populated, dense urban areas where civilians are still heavily present, being quite frequent, and them doing that very frequently. And Kharkiv especially, that was a very big issue because once they failed to take the city, they got really angry, and then they took out all their rage and frustration by just shelling the city day in, day out for months, killing tons of civilians. And so while it is true that there are war crimes on every side of any war ever, the military culture of the Russian military and the Ukrainian military is still starkly different. Just like the American military had a very different military culture than the Japanese. The American military committed a ton of war crimes during World War II, but it wasn't anywhere close to what the Japanese did because of the military culture and of the propaganda that was propagated about the Chinese and about the Americans and what they were like and why it was okay what they were doing to them. And in Russia right now, if you go on Russian state media, you'll see constant justification of war crimes.
Man, we saw a lot of dehumanization of there was a lot of dehumanization of Japanese people.
There was a lot of dehumanization.
I mean, almost the ultimate form of dehumanization of Japanese people here in the United States.
We put them in internment camps here, for fuck's sake.
That is true.
Even if there was definitely a lot of like, it's okay to do stuff to the Japanese because they're like subhuman mongrels. Like that messaging was very present.
Yeah, absolutely.
In American wartime propaganda, for sure.
That's true. My main point is though that the military cultures were different at the time, and the amount of war crimes and how that was encouraged and how that was protected by the Japanese regime, the culture was
I know
different,
nothing about this topic.
A higher propensity to do these.
But I mean, you're talking about two different cultures with two different sets of like values, where what might seem reasonable to one could seem absolutely barbaric to another, and so on and so forth, especially in wartime. And of course, everyone in wartime also is going to
only everyone is an expert on cluster munitions. Absolutely,
are all these wonderful acts of self-defense, and the actions of the other side are all these horrible, nightmarish things that are so beyond the pale and evil that anyone would condemn them. But the reality is that both sides are probably engaging in a little bit of evil. But my main problem with the arms thing is still
not right
like,
now. Not right now.
You take an
right now, I'm
explosive
just employed.
situation where two factions are at war with one another.
I'm on my temporary work at the time, and then I'll see. I'm trying to open up the options during this time.
Made this mistake before. I mean,
and one of them is going to study some shit. Well, I'll have to see how the working time goes, and also which organizations.
Sometimes. I mean, well, that's
successfully
kind of one of the
infiltrate.
frustrating things that I've run into in talking about this is that if you try and point out America's horrible track record of involvement in countries that are at war with one another and factions within those countries that are at war with one another, you get called, an America bad person.
It's because you are an America
the
bad
opposite
person.
of that is Russia good.
Also, like on this whole thing of the America bad person, it's because I think entering a conversation on Russian invasion in Ukraine with any sort of commentary on America as your main point, you are an America bad person. This invasion doesn't have anything to do with America in that sort of a way. It has been going on for much longer time than USA cared about any of these countries. Russia attempting to ethnically cleanse neighboring states and form the empire again. It's been going on for a very, very long time. This is like when people claim that it was America's fault that Yugoslavia broke apart, which absolutely was not. It ignores the entire history of our countries. It ignores all the parts we had to go through to reach the point of Yugoslavia breaking apart. You can't have a conversation about Yugoslavia if in your mind America was the main point, main actor in all of these events. And it's the same thing right now for Russia. You just can't. You can't get this conversation seriously if you keep on talking about America. America is not the main actor in the story. But I do think it's very USA to be constantly bringing up America in these types of situations. And especially the way he seems to be doing it right now, it's like he's trying to make it into a conversation about how Ukraine could have chosen between Russia and America bad, so it should have chosen Russia in his opinion or whatever the fuck. It's two evils battling for it. Ukraine trying to fight off Russian aggression is actually Ukraine fighting to be with America, and America is bad, so we should let Ukraine know that America is bad. All of it is just... It's like his views on borders, It's like... I don't see how you could enter a serious conversation about Russian invasion on Ukraine and lead it with your comments on America. It's just unreasonable, fully. Physically incapable of talking to anyone but themselves, and the weird reflection and self-flagellating religion of USA bad, like it's the most important thing in the world. Yeah, you just, after a while, you're like, dude, come on. Do you know we existed before? Is that something we have to remind you every once in a while? We existed before you existed. Some of us had ethnic conflict before America was a fucking thing. America did not start the mess that we have going on here. America does play a part in our foreign policy, sure, but come on. In my fantasy world, this wouldn't be a problem. We have no borders. Have you considered America
that's
bad?
As far as their minds go. I mean, you can look here in
the Japanese were not undisciplined. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, they were the opposite.
They were
there's a lot of stupid people in the chat tonight.
Shut up. That's fucking absurd.
How someone right now is older
you
than
can
the
see
US.
that, that narrative already being spun. There are people whose brains just shut down.
I'm glad the chat is having a lively discussion.
So, go for it.
So I do
he
believe the United
started
States is, of course,
he started on the thing of I can't say USA bad because people mock me for USA bad, and then they just went into a whole another direction, and I'm kind of disappointed about that, because it would be interesting to hear a response to that. I'm kind of sad they went into this bullshit about just chat and they just moved on.
Sent weapons to people we shouldn't have sent weapons to, but we also have sent weapons to people we should have sent weapons to. The Lend-Lease program, I think, was an incredibly effective program. And I'm using the World War II example, but that's, normie foreign policy take, right?
Well, sure.
World
War II is probably more
Hey,
accessible
talking
to
about
most
that, I have
people.
something to show you. I've actually had some time yesterday. I started some documents on Patreon. Then I had less time than I hoped for, so I didn't manage to post even the draft of the Ukrainian one. I want to make one part of Russian opposition so we could be following their posts every once in a while. But also I was planning to make a whole file on just Ukrainian activists to be following. And then the thing is, I went into YouTube, got Sternenko in my mentioned. So I was like, I'm going to start with Sternenko, and then I'm just going to, add other people, but I'm going to start with him. And then I was reading about his biography until like very late in the evening, and then I needed to go to sleep, so I didn't even write it properly. But I did manage before that to quickly go through this woman of like starting the Russian opposition one, and she had this interview which I kind of hoped to watch once. I don't know how good it is, but it's supposed to be on how NATO provoked in a way this invasion by being fucking weak and by failing to protect Ukraine and Georgia in 2008. So I thought that was interesting. I thought that was an interesting thing to see from someone who is connected to Russia in a way. She actually is Georgian. Her mother was also killed in 1999 when Russia had the apartment bombings. You remember those? When Russia did a false flag to justify their attack on Chechens. The mother of this journalist, her apartment was where the explosion started, basically, and she was killed on the spot. So the journalist, first she went to some SUS organization. It was like Russian language globally, Russian language news globally, SUS as fuck. Then she went to TV Rain, which I'm already suspicious about, so I'm not really trusting her too much. But I've never heard of this interview before, so I kind of hoped maybe to go through it to see how they comment on the whole thing. Obama is considered weak and simultaneously is accused of being a massive warmonger that brought US into several conflicts. Yet Trump is explicitly excluded from being called weak despite his repeated kowtowing to North Korea and Russia. Oh shit, that too. That too. Yeah, I've never... That's a lot smarter analysis of USA politicians than something I would ever expect to be doing. Holy shit. But yeah, true. At least, yeah, they're still being on like topics not connected to Ukraine.
No. That's the thing. People complain about using World War II as an example all the time, and
I don't complain. I don't complain about a vivid example that everyone fucking gets quickly. So yeah, it's fine with me.
And so I believe that it needs to be a case-by-case basis when we make decisions like this. I don't think it's as simple as...
This is where I think the nature of our fundamental disagreement, because I don't think it's ever a good idea.
It's never a good idea to send any country weapons.
No, I don't think it is.
So if Vladimir Putin went on TV tomorrow, right, and he said...
All right, hypothetical, let's go.
Yeah, I love hypotheticals for this, because I don't think anybody is this starkly like, never ever...
Why do you even need a hypothetical? Why not just ask, was it okay to do a Lend-Lease in World War II? Because, like, do we think he would be opposing Lend-Lease to Russia, to Soviet Union during World War II? Would he be against that? I'm kind of genuinely interested. I'm kind of sad they're going with a hypothetical. I don't know if in the continuing conversation they would be bringing it back. But you don't even need the hypothetical. You can just be like, oh yeah, okay, so in World War II, would you be against sending aid to Soviet Union? Like, yes or no? Because they are fighting Nazis. You also wanna kill all Nazis. Killing Nazis is a good thing, okay? So, good thing to send weapons to Soviets. Despite, the fact that they are trash. They still are lesser trash in a way. So I don't know. I wonder what his opinion on that would be.
Never send weapons or always send weapons. I never think anybody's like
I think
on these polar opposites.
I think a principle is pretty worthless if there's not going to be some kind of exception, but you're going to have to paint a pretty vivid picture for me to be like, all right, I guess we could do it then. But go ahead.
So if a country, if Vladimir Putin was to go on TV tomorrow and he was to say the equivalent of like, look, the goal is to make Ukraine not exist. Ukraine isn't real. Ukrainians aren't real. It's all fake. They're a bunch of Nazis. We need to destroy and eradicate the Nazi menace.
Isn't that basically not a hypothetical? Is that basically Putin's position?
Fuck this. I just wanted to be like, oh shit, isn't that exactly what he said? I already saw it out playing. Dylan does his little hypothetical, which isn't a hypothetical. Dude goes, yeah, it's okay to send weapons. Dylan's like, yeah, that's what he said actually. UFOs. Yeah. Something flying, we don't know what. I don't have strong opinions about UFOs. Until it's proven we got aliens or some shit, I'm not buying into the alien theories. You would take Nazis over Soviets? Oh, I wouldn't. I wouldn't personally. But also I understand the dislike. Yeah, but also like Nazis were existing for quite a short time, right? Luckily existing for quite a short time. I very much doubt a world under Nazis would be any better than the world under Soviets. You know, I very much doubt that when we talk about, you know, Soviet war crimes, I very much doubt if you were under the leadership of Nazis, you wouldn't be dealing with the same type of dehumanization, at least. So I don't know. Personally, I feel like it's horrible. Almost equally. I don't even know, my man. I am okay with Lend-Lease that was sent to Soviet Union. I think it was the right decision. I think destroying Nazis was the right decision. I think it was okay. Now, I do think it has resulted in Soviets being seen as saviors of the free world, and Soviets getting a lot of power throughout this, and then Russians as, you know, people whose imperialist dream was the Soviet Union, getting even more power out of this than they deserved. I do think that's a big problem. You know, the whole illusion that they built. I remember one of the analysts making up this really good thread at one point over how one of the strongest casualties of this war is going to be the casualty of this myth of Soviets being the saviors. Because we are having to learn about nations which were occupied by Soviets during and after World War II. We are having to learn about it. We are having to hear their stories because they are being very loud with their stories. So they're killing the myth. They're killing this illusion of Soviets being the heroes. So yeah, I don't know. In a way, I understand the tragedy that came out of it. I don't really know if there would be a better solution, I think. I don't really know if by denying Lend-Lease, I don't know if there was any other solution to be made that would manage to fix the situation better.
This is Putin's position. Yes, this is a Putin's position, but I'm just throwing this out there.
Sure.
Now, he's already said all these things, right? And this has led to an extremely brutal campaign of war and destruction. And my question to you is, how does us sending weapons to Ukraine that they then use to push back this brutal occupation, which I know neither of you support, I'm not going to straw man either of you. How does this materially make the situation worse? What's a realistic scenario? Because I want to hear your hypothetical where it becomes worse because we sent these weapons.
The realistic scenario for
also another thing, I'm again pausing, but another thing, the dude who acknowledges that Putin basically said all of these things, that this is basically not a hypothetical, but you know, Putin basically said all of these things. It's the same dude who just a few seconds ago was talking about Ukraine needing to solve this diplomatically. How are you at the same time aware that this invasion was started by Putin, who doesn't believe Ukraine should be allowed to exist, doesn't believe Ukraine is a real country, doesn't believe Ukrainians are a real nation, doesn't believe they should be allowed to exist, he thinks all of them are Nazis. How do you do at the same time acknowledge all of this has been said, acknowledge this has been his motivation, acknowledge he has been really open about his motivation, and then also you're like, oh, Ukrainians should have been diplomatic. Like, you're acknowledging Russian goal is to exterminate the people of Ukraine, and you're like, oh yeah, Ukrainians should have just been diplomatic and given over lands to Russians, but then you're pretending to be anti-war. It's not really, I don't know. I don't know how you fit all of this into your supposed ideology.
For me, where it becomes worse is a scenario that I think, you know, probably played out a few times before, which is, you know, all sending these weapons does is prolong the war that Ukraine is destined to lose. Ukraine loses the war, Russia seizes the territory, and whatever is...
There's two. It's like the only way you can pretend your ideology is valid is by making a claim that has no basis in reality. The only reason why he pretends to be anti-war and then opposes helping Ukraine is because he says Ukraine is destined to lose, which is a claim you can't be possibly making. Like, I know we are here all very, very pro-Ukraine. I know that we follow the counter-invasion very, very hopefully, right? I'm aware of all of that. But, like, even if you try, I think, to pretend like... if you try to ignore some recent advancements made, let's say it like this, even if you try to pretend that we're having a ceasefire, which we are not, even if you try to pretend we're having a frozen conflict, which we are not, I don't know what gives you the arrogance to claim Ukraine is destined to lose this. By all possible metrics, I don't know how you would be able to make that claim. I don't know what would realistically be making you say that. He's probably just an American righty, right? Now who's being told what to think? Ooh, one of those. Man, I don't even know. I don't even know where he falls. It's a weird collection of opinions he has.
Left of those weapons end up being Russian weapons.
So
another thing is another scenario. Ukraine becomes so destabilized that, and maybe they repel Russia, but there's the infrastructure and everything
Ukraine
is so
absolutely
fucked
has
by
a
the
chance to
time
win.
that they're done, that there are now warring factions within Ukraine fighting.
That's true. How are you? First, the other dude has this expectation of diplomacy out of Ukraine he would never expect out of Russia. And now this dude is being like, Ukraine is going to become more factioned and you're going to be having warlords everywhere around. How is this not a claim for you to say that we should be sending more weapons to Ukraine right now to be kicking out Russia immediately? Because if you know anything about the current Russian situation, you know they had a failed coup attempt just recently. You know that their political situation has still not been stabilized. How do you pretend out of these two countries, Ukraine is the one more likely to turn into warlord heaven instead of Russia, which actually is having fights between different political factions right now? Ukraine is very united at this point. I don't know you could make this claim seriously at all currently. I don't know how you would seriously make a claim that Ukraine is a country likely to become even more factioned, and then it's likely to, turn into warlord country or whatever the fuck. I don't know why you would make this accusation for Ukraine now when the country is the most united it's been in a very, very long time. And also, I don't know how you could make this accusation for Ukraine without acknowledging that, hey, the same accusation goes for Russia. And even stronger, because Russia is the one which actually is fractioned, and Russia is the one which actually could be likely to turn into warlord heaven. Why isn't this claim for you to give more weapons to Ukraine so we could defend Ukraine faster without prolonging the war? We can just get them to safety, we can build a wall around Russia, we can all be good. Because your idea is basically, hey, let's not give any weapons to Ukraine so we allow Russia to take all over them faster. This is not going to remove the shithole that is Russian government. This is not going to remove Russian oligarchs. This is not going to remove the Angry Patriots Club. This is not going to remove Wagner. This is not going to remove Kadyrov. They're still going to be there. It's just that their warlord bullshit is going to be closer to the lands of Europe. Plus also gaining new land as reward for their invasion, which surely is not going to make them get involved in another invasion later. Like, come on. Holding the ground. Russia has and is known for their throw for the Reddit war tactics. I do think Ukraine is doing well now, though. I do think they're doing really, really well right now. Like, I'm genuinely of the opinion they're doing rather well. Even when it comes to weapons, we're doing rather well with weapons. We're getting Hawks, by the way. Guys, I didn't show you the Hawks. I have to show you the Hawks. We're getting the Hawks. Wait, let me load it up. USA is supposed to buy a retired Hawk anti-air system with missiles from Taiwan, and it's supposed to refurbish them, and it's supposed to send them to Ukraine. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's a big piece of news. It's a big piece of news. We had conversations about these previously. Taiwan is phasing out Hawk missile, and it's replacing them by something their own production. I don't know the name of the anti-war systems, but basically we're getting the Hawks, and it's really, really good, and it's going to be a great act. Doing well, yeah. Ukraine is doing well. The counteroffensive so far is hitting quite a lot of strategic spots. It's doing all right. If Ukraine ended the war with what they had in January 2022, that is effectively a defeat for Russia. Yeah, that too. But also, I truly think we're doing okay. I truly think we're doing okay when it comes to that. We could be watching Dennis. We could be watching the frontline situation or like the map situation. I'm not too. I wasn't following it yesterday specifically, is what I'm trying to say. So I don't really know what's the situation from yesterday and today, but I do know that we were doing well. I do know that we were doing okay. I do know that Ukraine has managed to liberate a nice chunk of their territory so far, and the counteroffensive is still going. They still are hitting spots. They still are managing to kill the invaders. So I think for now, we're being rather successful. Also, I'm getting a phone call, so give me a sec.
For power.
And these weapons end up being used in a gigantic civil war.
This is one of the things that I get shit for when I bring it up. I'm not trying to claim that the political situation is the same, but I think that there are a lot of comparisons to be drawn in Afghanistan. We're talking about America trying to push back, trying to assert its hegemony over the earth and push back against what it perceives as communist hegemony, right? Mm-hmm. You support, one of my favorite examples to cite when I'm talking about this is it Rambo First Blood Part 2?
I think it's First Blood. The Mujahideen thing, yeah?
Where Rambo goes to Afghanistan to fight the Russians.
Rambo First Blood Part 2.
Part 2. I think that's it. I think I was right.
The naming scheme of those movies is so fucked.
But if you look at that, it's a really interesting time capsule, because at that point in America, the media narrative was, here are these poor, oppressed people, and by supporting them with military engagements and weapons deliveries and training for their fighters, we're enabling these people to fight for their freedom and their autonomy. Mm-hmm. What ended up happening in Afghanistan was, as soon as they were successful in pushing the Russians out, and a huge linchpin in the dissolution of the Soviet Republic in general, after that happened, the country factionalized, and these very self-same weapons were used to oppress the people of those countries as warlords and factions squabbled over power. And then you see the narrative shift super starkly in the early 2000s with 9/11, and now these people are evil, they're scum, they're literally doing violence on their own populations with American weapons, using American training. And these are the bad guys. And now American soldiers are invading Afghanistan, getting killed by American weapons that were put there. I think this bolsters TJ's point of dumping a bunch of fucking weapons in the middle of a really destabilized, war-torn region has far-reaching consequences that oftentimes are hard to judge.
And really hard to predict.
So, as for the idea of the Russians getting the weapons, I don't think there's really a scenario where they could end up with the majority of these weapons unless they were to make Ukraine as a state itself submit and totally capitulate. Because the Ukrainians, no matter what, are going to have to preserve the weapons because they need their weapons, because if this war doesn't finish this issue, as in the Russians are not kicked out, there's a decent chance that the war is going to kick up again in 5 to 10 years. Right, and that's another point I always want to push.
There's a decent chance that this war is still raging on in 5 to 10 years.
A 10 year, I don't. At the current pace of violence,
in the era of forever war. Nobody thought that the Afghanistan war would last fucking close to 30 years. Nobody.
Okay, what? There's so much I want to respond to.
Okay, go ahead.
So as for this war, when we talk about the war in Iraq, the war lasted 28 days, and then you had a very long occupation, right?
See, to me, there's no distinction.
You got to let me finish my point. So the war was for 28 days, and then there was a long occupation. Now, that was still a war in a way, a war against Al-Qaeda, different resistance groups, a bunch of different things. But the Russians haven't gotten past the first part. They haven't gotten past the invasion. In fact, they haven't gotten even that fairly deep into the invasion, as in taking the capital, taking over all the government hotspots. They don't even have air superiority, right? So the scenario in my mind of the Russians completely making the Ukrainians capitulate, that idea was smashed a month into the war. So I don't see how those weapons are going to transfer from the Ukrainian government over to the Russian government if the Ukrainian government has every incentive in the world to stop them from happening. Stuff get captured in battle.
It's not an intentional thing, right? But you said earlier, you conceded that Ukrainian people have already been killed by weapons that were given to Ukrainians.
Well, yes, like I was about to say, you can overtake a position and find a rifle given to them by the United States and then use that against the Ukrainians. But the vast majority of this firepower is being used by the Ukrainians, like 98 to 99% of it is used by the Ukrainians to push back against the Russians and capture Russian equipment. The number one tank supplier of Ukraine right now is the Russian military. Poland, I think, is number 2 with like 600 tanks or something like that.
What's the conversation in chat?
Overwhelmingly, it is the Ukrainians capturing Russian equipment and the Russians abandoning Russian equipment. That seems to be the standard right now. There have been instances of it happening the other way, but I don't think that there is enough of American equipment being captured in the field for it to make a demonstrable difference in Russia's ability to destroy Ukraine. Definitely not enough to overbalance the amount of aid that the weapons is giving the Ukrainians in defense against the Russians. If that wasn't the case, they wouldn't be asking for the weapons, and if it wasn't the case, we probably wouldn't have seen so much success on the battlefield by the Ukrainians from using these Western-backed munitions, which they used to take back the rest of the Kharkiv Oblast, which they used to take back Kherson, and which they're currently trying to use to take back Zaporozhye and the rest of the Kherson Oblast through this current counteroffensive. And they might even use to take back Bakhmut. So who knows exactly what they're going to take. I'm not going to promise that they're going to win the war, but my main point is
Russia might retake one of those previous, you know what I mean? Like I do not agree that it's out of the realm of possibility that 10 years on this conflict could still be going.
Not at the
lived experience.
Not in the way that it's currently going. It might become a frozen conflict, but when we talk about the rate of death and destruction, I don't see the Russians and the Ukrainians being able to sustain this for 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a possibility where maybe backed by a very stubborn West, it's continuing to support the Ukrainians, they could support it financially.
No, long had people at GG.
But the Russians, I mean, they've burnt
Not
through
like
a
these
very
two fuckers,
significant
though.
portion of their tank stockpile in a year and a half. I think like 30 to like 35% of it already. And so I don't see how they keep that up for another 9 years. They don't.
Yeah, but like Taiwo, surely you're aware that by giving Russia Crimea, Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, Zaporizhia, Kharkiv, and then never joining NATO, the war would start again. Like the entire reason Putin started this war is because he expected a lot of weaker response from the world by allowing Ukraine to lose. We would just be giving him more reasons to think we are weak and worthless. There would be no chance for this war not to start again. That would be the ultimate pussy move out of pussy moves. This war would start again. They would be trying, the least they would be trying is they would be trying to control the country, which by itself would be fucking horrible. Like in Georgia right now, they've installed a pro-Russian government in Georgia. They're trying to be pushing their own laws and regulations that will be benefiting Russia from Georgia. Georgia effectively has lost the war. Georgia is still being controlled by Russians. I'm not really sure that putting Ukraine in the same situation Georgia is right now would be better for anyone else in the long run. I don't think they would go take Poland because I don't think they would dare to touch a NATO country. But yeah, they would definitely be going for a non-NATO country as soon as possible. Absolutely. It's like how Kasparov said it. This war is a product of Russian imperialist mindset, and the way to destroy Russian imperialist mindset is to destroy the empire. So it needs to be defeated. Ukraine needs to demolish Russian military and then piss on the graves of all Russian soldiers, basically. You need to destroy any idea of global respect that Russians have right now. You need to like chunk out every single last bit of it. You need to crumble the empire. In no other way is this going to work. If they can take any sort of a victory out of this war, they're going to take it, they're going to grab it, and they're going to pretend like it was their own might and power that got them this victory. And then you're just looking at another war in a couple of years, because that's what they do every single time so far. Worked so well in 1938. Oh shit, yeah, that too. Only reason he was invading was to save Ukraine from Nazis, or to stop Western or aggression, or random reason. He was trying to save the Russian speakers in the east of Ukraine. Then it just so happens that after that, Russian troops have gone into the eastern part of Ukraine and killed all the natives there, many of which were were Russian speakers. But, they were trying to save them by, killing them, I guess. It's how a shithole works, isn't it?
Don't have the production capacity, they don't have the foreign exports, so I just don't think it's like financially even feasible.
This is, by the way, a biased thing. So what's your solution to invaders? That every invading country who starts a war should be given what they want, so there isn't any wars. Like, reward all of the countries which invade, and then surely in a couple of years you're going to be seeing no countries invading. Come on.
Feasible. The Russian government has seen its, I think, energy profits and government revenues drop by about 50%. They've increased military spending by 200 to 300%. So I understand, like, the idea makes sense, but it's just not. I don't think it's financially.
Remember the memes about it being the second strongest army in Russia?
For the last
don't they have? I mean, it's my understanding that Russia is operating on a very capitalistic fiat type of currency. Why don't they just do what we do when we're $1 trillion plus
the
in
ruble
the hole
is,
and
the
just
ruble
print,
is sadly not
print
that
the money.
strong. They've introduced
But
a lot
their
of
currency is
price
useless.
controls of the ruble, and that actually led to the ruble being, on paper, very strong like a month to 2 months into the war, where they were talking about like record strength. But recently,
announced to every
a lot of
country
these
in the world
artificial
my plan to
controls have started
invade.
break
To
down.
avoid war,
A
I
lot of
expect them to
investors
cede
are
all the
trying
world
their
to
best
me.
pull their money out, but the Russian government has literally banned people from taking their money out of the ruble. They're doing everything they can to protect it, and it's still losing value. I think it hit a really bad point recently with the Wagner coup, with it, I think, going up to like dropping to like a 95, like really like 95 in comparison to like the USD. Really.
Wait, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure it was 100. Who is following ruble to dollar rate? Was it not at 100 at least? At one, yeah, it is. Cause I know people were mocking the fact it was basic like allow optional cookies. Yeah, I allow them. I just want to see the numbers. Oh, it was the lowest point here somewhere. That's fair. That's fair. Why can't I just accept the shit? What the fuck is that? But yeah, doing it rather badly. So what? Erdogan? Erdogan emote. Nice. I'm waiting for the 2 new munition factories that are being built with emergency war level response time. Oh, give me a sec. Wstaję! I check. I search. Oh, I'll have to leave for a second. I'll have to go downstairs for a second just to bring some shit out. But what I wanted to show you is Zaluzhny recently made claims. Where do I have it saved? His interview. Also, we have to watch Girkin. Oh, there's so many stuff I've saved. But Zaluzhny recently, this too, was talking about. Oh, here it is. About the expectations out of Ukrainian military, basically. And Zaluzhny made a claim in which he said that the Ukrainians should be the ones to decide how to kill this enemy, which is the Russian invaders. And he claims it is possible and necessary to attack Russia within its own territory. Now, he did say that they would not do this with Western weapons, but instead they would do this with Ukrainian weapons. But just very strong, very, very, very strong. Yeah, if our partners are afraid that we will use their weapons, we will kill with ours. To save my people, do I have to ask for authorization on what to do in enemy territory? I'm supposed to do nothing. Why? Because Putin can use nuclear weapons. Kids who are dying don't want to know. So, very strong, very, very strong, as expected out of him. I'm hoping these threats towards Russians continue. If you remember, Budanov recently made several claims that could be understood as him threatening Russian war criminals. And also, I thought it was very interesting that some officials from Ukrainian intelligence agencies have been commenting on the fact that they are getting intelligence from Putin's own circle. So I think it's very, very interesting, all of this. I think it's very strong, the way that they are attacking Russia right now, and I hope it's going to bring some really, really good results. But also I have to run for a second, so I'm going to play you this video for a second. I don't think it's going to last for next 10 years now. I don't think Russia can hold on for 10 years. I don't think Russia can hold on for 10 years, and I also don't think Ukraine is willing to sacrifice another generation. So what I'm expecting to see is Ukraine getting new weapons of their own and just blowing the fuck out of every single Russian that. Haha. Be right back.
Hello and welcome to TVP World. You're watching another edition of Break the Fake, where we debunk fake news and combat false narratives. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and let's get rolling. Recently, Putin delivered several ostensibly reassuring speeches about how arms deliveries mean nothing to Ukraine, are nothing crucial, and that long-range missiles and tanks in general have no effect on the so-called special military operation.
Что касается поставок вооружений, различного оружия, то мы видим, сколько надежд возлагалось на поставку ракет достаточно дальнего радиуса действия. Ну, что да, они ущерб наносят, но ничего критического в зоне боевых действий не происходит с использованием этих ракет. То же самое танки иностранного производства, боевые машины и пехоты. На вчерашний вечер танков только с 4 июня уничтожено 311 единиц. Из них значительная часть, я думаю, что 1/3 как минимум, это западного производства, в том числе леопарды. Могу вам сказать, что украинские военнослужащие часто отказываются даже садиться в эти танки. Почему? Потому что они являются приоритетной целью для наших ребят и уничтожаются в первую очередь на поле боя.
Wait, what? Did he really just say that in just 9 days the Russian military destroyed 311 tanks? Dear Lord, you guys really need to start double-checking the figures your clown bring you, at least to some degree. We do not forget your claims of taking Kyiv in 3 days and what come of them, so hearing about over 300 tanks knocked out in just over a week sounds fishy, to say the least. Another lie that Putin is trying to push says that Ukrainian soldiers are allegedly scared of getting into Western armor because they know that these tanks will be choice targets for the Russian military. To be honest, however, a couple of episodes ago, we showed you a story about a Ukrainian soldier surviving a direct hit to US-made M2A2 Bradley fighting vehicles and living to tell a tale. Western armor designers have long focused on and emphasized crew survivability,
Hey,
and
you.
that video served just as proof that they were right to do so. A vehicle can be replaced, but its crew is much more precious. Vladimir, oh boy, maybe it's time to snap back
Oh,
to
wait, I
reality.
disagree with chat there. What was that idea? A little too extreme. Might just kick off World War III as well. Kicking off World War III is going to be given land to Russia. That is how we kicked off World War II. You know, we have like historical happening to look back to and to learn from. If you give the aggressor anything as a result of their invasion, they will do more invasions. You give them anything, you give them a little crumb, they will do more. If you do not want World War III to happen, you should be supporting the destruction of every single Russian soldier currently invading Ukraine. If you do not want World War III to happen, you should be supporting the destruction of the imperialist delusion in the mind of every single Russian. Anything less than that, you're seeing World War III. You're seeing World War III. We should not be encouraging Putin to do more bullshit at all. And we are encouraging that if we reward the aggression. But also, yeah, when it comes to World War III, the thing is, Putin fucking fears NATO. Putin never attacked a country which is a NATO member. He fears NATO. He can't afford to have a war with NATO, and I think he knows it. He is aware of this. He can't use his nukes well enough, nor efficiently enough, nor quickly enough to avoid the destruction of his country if he tries to go against NATO. You know, he's getting destroyed. He knows this. If we show to be strong enough, if we show to be a strong opponent, I truly do believe that we will be, you know, making it impossible for him to ever attempt actually starting World War II. Because his only way out of it, without losing everything, would be the possibility of threatening nukes. And I'm pretty sure he is aware that NATO wouldn't even need to use a fucking nuke in a response. We could just storm fucking Russia immediately. He knows this. We know this. He knows that he has no chance to fight against Americans, let alone the rest of Europe. We're not going to be seeing World War III if we have a very strong response to this. If we have a pussy response, that's a different situation. Because having a pussy response to this means we're going to have a pussy response to whichever country he tries to invade next. And he's going to try to invade more countries. And then what you're going to be seeing is his stupid little allies trying to do their own thing. You're going to be seeing some countries like Belarus or countries like Serbia attempting to do their own little thing of attacking their neighbors. And what do you do then? At which point do you go, hey, we need to just destruct the source of all of these issues, instead of rewarding them with new land. Conflict of elites is brewing in Russia due to reduction in spending. How it's like with Hungary, isn't it? Shit, yeah, that too. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know. Overall, I don't think there's going to be a World War III, and I think there's not going to be a World War III because Russia can't win. They know they can't win. Unless we show to have a pussy response, because if we have a pussy response, we will be giving them the ability to win. We will be giving them the hope that, hey, maybe we could go and take more land, and then more land, and then more land. And soon what we're going to be seeing is, you know, the West being, what, just USA? Because we have successfully taken over every single other country. We need to have really, really strong responses to this.
And now let's circle back to the scandal involving the dismissal of the commanding officers of the Russian 58th Combined Arms Army that we discussed yesterday. The similarities between the campaign waged by Prigozhin against Shoigu and Gerasimov and this current story about Popov are frankly speaking, rather striking. The Popov story follows the same model and unfolds through the same channels of communication, primarily Prigozhin's network of Telegram channels, and this may indicate that the presence of a certain unified control center behind both operations, which following the failed mutiny is now using other figures to reach its objective. What objectives are these, you ask? The proximate goal likely involves...
Oh shit, that we're talking about Chinese investments? Fuck, I don't know if I want to pause this dude, actually. Let's play him. But Russia is doing quite badly in their relationship with Iran. They're failing to supply them.
Ouster of Shoigu and a reshuffle in the upper echelons of the Russian Defense Ministry.
Ooh.
The more overarching goal might just be organizing a revolt in the Russian army and fomenting turmoil in the Russian Federation to ultimately remove Putin from power. After Prigozhin's mutiny, this larger goal cannot be ruled out. If the Wagner Group cared only for the removal of Shoigu and Gerasimov, it is unlikely that they would have pressed on with their campaign against Moscow after Putin branded them rebels and it became clear that he would not meet their demands. And Prigozhin's
they still have them. They still have the supplied ones.
Being waged on a lie seems too heavy an accusation to be used just in the struggle for control over the Russian defense apparatus.
The situation so far, the way it seems to be, is that Russia is failing to supply Iran with... I have it saved, what the fuck they're failing to supply them with. But it's basically similar to Russia-India relationship, because Russia-India relationship started crumbling because Russia was failing to supply India with weapons that India has purchased already. And at that time it was like, this war is destroying our trade, this war is destroying our business itself. And right now, I don't know if you noticed, but like recently they have not been mentioned as a strong supporter of Russia at all. It is in big part because Russia has failed them, and it seems like Russia is having exactly the same issues with Iran currently, which is for everyone else really, really good.
What about the other Russian general? You didn't think we'd forgot about Surovikin, did you? According to the Wall Street Journal, General Surovikin is in custody. Sources said that alongside him, 13 senior officers have been detained for questioning, while 15 others have been dismissed or suspended. Most of the arrests happened just hours after
Bro,
the
it's hot as
began.
fuck here. Holy shit.
Wall Street Journal sources said that Surovikin knew of Prigozhin's plans, but was not involved with the rebellion itself. To date, he has not been officially charged with any offense. In the meantime, the State Duma deputy Karatopolov has said that Surovikin is resting and remains unavailable. But the question we'd like to ask is, will he become available anytime in the near future?
Karatopolov.
The perception of the Turkish president in Russia has suddenly shifted from friend of the empire to
I know, right?
The Russians seem to have suddenly realized that Ankara is a longtime naval member. It joined the alliance on February 18, 1952, so it took them quite some time to notice. Dislike of Recep Tayyip Erdogan was naturally followed by dislike towards any nation related to Turks, and so the Kremlin media outlets have grown abuzz with outlandish suggestions to deport as many as 2 million Azeris as punishment for disloyalty and Baku's friendly relations with Turkey.
Я сейчас тебе дам пример. У нас в стране 2 миллиона азербайджанцев. Так. Я очень хорошо знаю, какая сейчас политика проводится в плане нашего контингента миротворческого на территории Карабаха.
Бро.
Я хорошо читаю азербайджанские газеты, которые сейчас отнюдь не за нас. Не за нас. Существует масса каналов передачи информации, тем более в рамках, как ты говоришь сам, недавних республик. Хотя уже 30 лет, какое недавно, уже поколение выросло, которое совсем. Элементарно передать Ильхану Гидаровичу информацию. Элементарно. У вас в стране 8 миллионов людей, националов, 8,5. 2 миллиона ваших этнических выходцев проживают на нашей территории. Вы тут посторожнее. И с нашим контингентом, и с тем, как вы хотите дружить с Путиным, и в то же самое время...
Саша, это работает?
Я считаю, что это будет работать, потому что, извини, а почему я должен терпеть такое количество людей, которые мало того хорошо устроены в бизнесе, и в делах, а часто и в политике, а часто и в политологии? Это же элементарно работает.
По-моему, пока все это работает с точностью наоборот.
Similar calls and suggestions have in the past brought about 2 pogroms of civilians in the Transcaucasus. The events we have came to known as the Armenian Genocide has its roots in the mass murder of the Azeris, committed jointly by Russians and Armenians. Moscow has once again proven ready to dig up any old demons of the past to cause as much chaos around the world as it can and further its own cause. 56% of polled Russians believe that NATO and the US are responsible for the war in Ukraine. Moscow has sent troops
56.
to attack a sovereign country, allowing them to rape and pillage their way through it, raising entire villages and abducting children, and the average Russian still believe it's the West's fault. After all, it's a very comfortable position to be in, to not see your own problems and keep blaming them on everyone around.
Как относитесь к этой структуре
56.
Североатлантического альянса?
Oh, this one?
Я обычный гражданин, есть и есть.
Параллельно. Нейтрально. Отрицательно.
Почему? Что они вам сделали?
Они наши, как сказать, враги.
Как относитесь к ним, к этой организации?
Дайте мне пулемет, я разберусь.
Нет, у меня нет враждебности. Я помню, что Россия собиралась вступать даже в НАТО.
Как относитесь к ним, к натовцам?
Чудесно. У меня вообще врагов нет. Я знаю, что это вражеская аббревиатура.
Вообще положительно относитесь к тому, что Украина в НАТО может войти?
Я думаю, да, если они хотят.
Состоят в НАТО люди, которые всегда, Англия, Америка, они всегда были против.
Based.
Ну что они вам сделали? Что они вам лично сделали?
Ничего не сделали, но они всегда приходили к нам с войной.
То, что Украина туда может войти,
Evil.
как вы думаете, реалистично, нереалистично?
Почему нет? Может, и Россия когда-то войдет. Если это приблизит мир во всем мире, то я не против.
Oh, it's not fear.
Back when he was alive, Vladimir Zhirinovsky
I don't know
was
what it
the
is, but it's not
quintessential
fear.
jester, allowed to say whatever he wanted because he really ain't made any sort of sense.
I mean,
Throughout
technically, it depends on how you, how deep you want to go into the whole thing of analyzing national myths. I was getting really into this for a while. We have a Croatian writer who was really good at analyzing Croatian nation-related mythology, for example, and it also plays a part in how we see our war, the homeland war that we had in 1990s, and how we describe it and how we talk about it in media. But I think for Russia, they have the same thing as Serbia has, which is the delusion that your nation is destined for greatness. The delusion itself is what keeps you believing in bullshit, and it is something that is unquestionable. You never question whether your nation was meant to be great. You always think it was meant to be great. There were always some enemies which were pushing it out of it. So, for example, it's how when they talk about USSR and the crimes done during USSR times, many Russians will say that communism was an experiment imposed onto them by the West. Right? The idea is like, oh, we weren't evil. It was actually the West that made us evil. Oh, we weren't bad people. It was the West that made us bad. Oh, we didn't attack Chechens for nothing. They actually bombed our buildings. They didn't. Oh, we didn't attack Georgians for nothing. They actually were, what was it, mistreating Russian speakers? Which also they didn't. We didn't invade Ukraine for nothing. They were mistreating Russian speakers there. They didn't. All of this is a lie, but they have the idea of like protecting their own people and being a greater country, and then having the right to keep themselves strong. And I think it's something that gets pushed onto you from a very young age, culturally, in just the way you live. Because I've met a lot of Serbs who have certain ideas over how much land they should be occupying as a nation, and it's mostly a thing that they never even question. It's the idea you never ever question. Even in school, when the idea of Greater Serbia is presented to you, it's presented to you as like, hey, this is the idea of Greater Serbia. These are the lands where Serbs live, and then some people believe this is where Serbia should be allowed to be ruling over, right? But that's it. They never call it out. They're never like, oh yeah, you know, if you advocate for the myth of Greater Serbia, you're advocating for invasions onto foreign territory. No, they never point out that part. It's always just like, oh yeah, this is what we could be having. It's one of those things they never have a question. And then when you speak to one of them and you point them to some questions, it's almost like speaking to religious people. They will straight up, you can see the little cogs turning when you present them with a question that they have never thought of before. Brainwashing is easy if everyone's thinking it. Yeah, like that. It's easy to get them to believe in some shit if everyone else believes in some shit. So yeah. By the way, Nikki currently has someone in chat who is doing the thing for Yugoslavia. They're saying Serbians and Croatians are the same thing. They just had a bunch of gang wars during the 20th century where everybody was killing their cousins over dumb shit, which is a lie. And if you remember, this is one of the main reasons why I'm trying to do streams with heavy focus on Yugoslavia. And I know recently we have been mostly focusing on Ukraine, but I really, really want to be focusing on Yugoslavia a lot, and especially the Yugoslav wars. Because the Western idea of this war being Balkan people killing each other over dumb shit, it washes out so much deliberate action. So many choices that were made specifically to play into a nation's myth over what land it's supposed to be having and what land it has the right to have. The idea that this was just a bunch of tribes killing each other, you're completely ignoring the Bosnian justified victimhood in that situation. So you're completely ignoring the fact that Bosnia was a victim of both Croats and Serbs. Bosnia as a country suffered so much. Bosnians as people suffered so much. They suffered invasions onto their territory. They suffered ethnic cleansing done by Croatians and Serbs both. This was deliberate action by Croats and Serbs who wanted to go into Bosnian territory and who wanted to annex parts of their lands. This was a plan. What we are having in Croatia right now, for example, is the myth of Croatian invasion onto Bosnia actually being a civil war in Bosnia. We're basically doing a thing that Russia is doing right now with Ukraine. It's trying to wash out the fact it invaded, and it's trying to present it as like, oh no, we didn't actually invade. These people over there, they were just fighting between themselves. We didn't do anything bad ourselves. They're trying to wash out the actual crime that happened. Wagner? Oh, yeah, after the mutiny, Putin acknowledged how much cash money he was putting into Wagner. Yeah. It was known before, but he was denying it for a very, very long time. Only thing similar about Croatia and Serbia is being in the same area. Yeah, the two. It's a very uneducated conversation to be having when you look at Yugoslav wars and you call them a bunch of gang wars. It's very, very uneducated, especially as the comment that it says that during 20th century they had a bunch of gang wars. I wonder what they think the other gang wars were. Because there were some very specific conflicts happening. We could talk about, certain instances, but in no point was it everybody was killing each other over dumb shit. That's not what what was happening. You're ignoring a lot of our history. You're ignoring a lot of our national myths in order to make up this stupid little claim, which is not really something unexpected out of, people who are pro-Russians, because it does remind me of that. We used to be having a chatter here who at one point said that Ukraine joining NATO is the same thing as Serbia rebuilding Yugoslavia, which I always thought was one of the dumbest comments I've seen in this chat. But it's the type of a shit that like a pro-Russian tells to you. They have absolutely no knowledge on anything, really. It's just a bunch of idiots, and that's it. Emotions in Balkan. Man, I've been looking very, very much into Bosnian suffering in the last few years. I think we lessen it very, very much in our education. I think we're really, really bad with pointing out how much Bosnians have suffered as a result of our decisions to go and invade them in our attempts to claim their land. And I think someone asked on one of the posts I've seen about it, like, why is this option so widespread in society? And I really think it's because we have some sort of a national myth of Croatia being a country that suffered a lot under Serb rulership and then under the Serb invasion, which is true. We did suffer a lot. But I think in a way this suffering created, how would I say this? Created the idea of us having to suffer in order to gain independence. And we are still really, really strong in our nationalist circles on bringing up this point of us suffering in order to fight for independence, right? And I think that this myth, because this is a myth, it is harmed by having to acknowledge that our people were the aggressors on Bosnia. Right? This idea of us being the victims, and we were victims of Serbian aggression, absolutely. But in the situation with Bosnia, we were the aggressors. And I think we're not willing to accept as a nation that we were both victims and the aggressors. We're trying to somehow present it all as just us being the victims and never to be blamed for anything. So yeah. Everything from the Balkan is telling me our people suffered so much. Many of them did. It depends on which nation you ask specifically. When we talk about Slovenia, for example, Slovenia has suffered in a way that Slovenia had to be giving a lot of money during time of Yugoslavia to less developed republics of Yugoslavia. Slovenia was basically the cash cow. Slovenia and Croatia both, but Slovenia very, very much more. So Slovenia did suffer quite a lot. When we had the kingdom, before we had Yugoslavia, it was the kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes, because that was the order of importance in the state. Slovenes were seen as the least important nation. Slovenes were the ones who had no political power at all. They absolutely were mistreated. When Yugoslavia broke apart, Slovenes were actually the ones who, in a way, initiated it crumbling by walking out of the communist summit, the last communist summit? Council we had as Yugoslavia. A Slovenian delegation initiated the crumbling of Yugoslavia by refusing to accept Serbian demands, right? So Slovenes, in a way, they do have a lot to be feeling bad about. They fought hard for their independence. They were really brave. They were the ones who put the whole thing into motion. They did have only a 10-day war, so they didn't really have a too long war after coming out of Yugoslavia. They weren't really broken by that. But before this, they did have a long time of being pushed aside and not being allowed to govern themselves. So Slovenians, in a way, did suffer. You look at Croatia, we had a lot of shit with Serbia. When you look at Serbia, the way that they have suffered would be, I believe the strongest thing they have is World War II, where Croatians who were Nazi allied at the time were making concentration camps, Jasenovac being one of them, in which the main victims were Serbians, right? So when Serbs talk about suffering, they will usually point to this. Oh yeah, we suffered under Croats, and then, you know, now Croats are trying to claim that we invaded them in 1990s, which they did. They did invade. Serbs were the aggressors. But every country has, yeah, a way to present themselves as the ultimate victim, and this is why it's important to know how to look into specific situations, instead of just being like, oh, there were a bunch of wars, and in this bunch of wars, everyone was fighting each other. Like, no, you had, in some of these cases, sure, you could claim it was just like a clash, in a way, but in many of these conflicts, you actually have a clear aggressor, and you have a clear victim of this aggression. And it's important to know which was which. Ben Wallace stepping down? I don't even know how I feel about it. I thought he was okay, but then he did the whole "we are not Amazon" thing, and now I'm like, eh. Everybody who is not directly affected by the war should not judge Ukrainians. You mean judge them on what? On what? Mocking Russians getting exploded, because that one's based. It was at this time we were segregating people based on skin color, invading a country to support a dictator, invading these two other countries because they were close to the other one, and invading a country in South America but denying it. Next week we will discuss the third time we genocided the natives and the lynching of a teenager because a Karen lied. Holy shit. But I wish ours was this eventful. We had, hey, we're going to be talking about Croatian kings from a very, very old time. So we start talking about Croatian kings from the very, very old time, and then we just kind of speed run through the 20th century. We barely even talked about it. Shocked and appalled by Ukrainians wishing death to the invading forces. True, you can't fight evil without becoming evil, can you? And that is why you should not fight it at all. You should give it all the land it wants. Because if you do not give it all the land it wants, then you will be killing them. And if you kill them, you are as bad as they are. I have a million IQ take on this.
Decades of political activity, all he did was try to draw all the attention.
By the way, talking about this, but have you guys noticed that when we talk about Russian opposition, have you guys noticed that they're getting really, really angry over the over us mocking the dude who got eaten by a shark in Egypt, and then they also are getting really, really angry over us mocking the their soldiers getting exploded. But like, they're not angry about Mobic Cube. They're not angry about Vatnik Square. Why are they not angry about that one? Because I'm unironically starting to believe in some conspiracies about that shit. Why are they not angry about that one? Surely that would be, you know, one of the things they would be pissed off about. Like, oh, look at these vile, evil Ukrainians claiming that this cube is actually Mobix being returned home. But they're not bringing any attention to that claim. Why are they not doing it? Did they just like miss it? How could they have missed it? It was everywhere. It's still going viral. People are still mocking it. Why are they not angry about it? It's making me go down some conspiracy paths of like, oh, maybe it's actually true. Maybe it actually is Mobix, you know? It's weird that they're ignoring them. I'm just saying. Hey, also, I wanted to show you this. This is what I mentioned about Iran. Russia did not supply Iran with any of the 50 Su-35 fighter jets paid for. The Russian Federation promised to transfer 50 of its Su-35 fighters to Iran, for which Tehran has already paid. The agreement should take place in 2023, but Iran has not yet received a single plane from Moscow. While officials in Tehran continue to seek a partnership with Russia, it is becoming increasingly clear that Russian officials see their relationship with Iran as little more than a card that can be played to suit their needs. The analysis is actually from this, which was a Ukrainian site, and then I was like, I'm not sure people want to listen to Ukrainian site. So then I went and found this analysis, which is based on this piece of news. So basically, yeah, this is the OG, and then this is the English translated. And yeah, it is what it is. They are saying that they... Where is it? We need the Sukhoi aircraft that has been mentioned, but we do not know when it will enter Askbodron. And this is related to the decision of country's high-ranking officials. So we're having to wait. Russia is fucking Iran over. It's basically the same thing. Also, TVP did a little video on it, so we are gonna watch the video to get more info. But it's basically the same thing as it was for India, because India bought shit from Russia too, and then Russia couldn't deliver because of the war. And this is what caused the rift in their relationship. Russia is basically trying to sell military equipment to other countries because it used to be their main supplier. So it's now trying to sell more military equipment, but it can't really be selling more military equipment because it's Russia and it's engaged in a useless war, which it's losing. So, yeah.
Hello and welcome back to World Talks here on TVP World with me, Hashim Kumar. In this episode, we explore a diplomatic rift between Tehran and Moscow.
Ooh.
Iran has summoned Russia's ambassador to protest their endorsement of a statement on disputed islands claimed by both Iran
Hey, this is
and
another
the
topic.
UAE.
Holy shit. They have something else?
The UAE, Russia, China and the Gulf Cooperation Council have called for a peaceful resolution in accordance with international law. Iran has rejected all such suggestions and called on Russia to correct its position on this issue. To explore the dynamics of this Middle Eastern dispute and Russia's involvement in it, I'm joined by Zygmunt Jurchowski, founding editor at Open Democracy Russia.
Open Democracy Russia.
Zygmunt, welcome to TVP World. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Good evening to you. So, what can you tell us, first of all, about this dispute between Iran and the UAE over these islands?
I don't think it's extremely important issue, and this is just an event which would not change the dynamics of the relations between Iran and Russia. And for the last 2 years, we've been witnessing development of strategic partnership between both countries, which are pariah countries for the international community. Both are under serious sanctions. Iran for developing nuclear program, and Russia for staging a war with Ukraine, and they are isolated from the Western world, from the developed Western world. They have no choice. They had no choice. So
crazy ex-girlfriend that want to move on.
Substantial improvement and acceleration in development of mutual relations on all kinds of fronts. Remember that last year, President Putin traveled to Tehran to meet with Iranian President Raisi. This was his first foreign trip after the invasion of Ukraine. We have seen a series of developments on the financial front, on the economic front, on logistics front. Russia and Iran have been discussing several subjects, such as building North-South corridor connecting St. Petersburg to their strategic port of Bandar Abbas in the south of Iran. In spring this year, Iranian foreign minister visited Moscow, and they were discussing signing or renewing strategic partnership agreement. Their trade in the last year grew 15%.
But
so
Sigmund, can I pause you there, please? You talk about an increase in trade. What does Russia have to trade? I mean, it's basically mineral rich, but Iran has its own oil and gas. Why does it need Russia? And what's the trade in?
Weapons?
Iran receives a lot of agricultural products from Russia. Russia is a really big exporter of agricultural products, and last year trade increased 15%, and it reached now. It's not the scale Russia had with the European Union. $75 billion, but it's increasing every year. They've reached several interesting agreements, such as you know, both countries have been disconnected from the banking SWIFT program. They no longer can do transactions with the Western banks, so they rendered their own banking systems. Iranian and Russian could cooperate together. Russian Central Bank chairwoman Mrs. Nabiullina was in Tehran in the beginning of this year, and also Iran agreed to accept Russian banking cards MIR, which are totally useless in most of the world. But in Iran, but these are important things. But what is really the most important thing is the military cooperation. As we all know, Iran has been supplying Russia with suicide drones, which have been extensively used by the Russian side, and also Iran has agreed, according to the John Kirby of the National Security Council in Washington, Iran has agreed to build a drone factory on the territory of Russia. In exchange, Russia agreed to provide around 30 modern and sophisticated Su fighter jets to Iran, and Iran pilots are already undergoing training in Russia. Russia and Iran and Venezuela
Can we pay in rubles? Wait, wasn't there an issue of like India not accepting rubles for payments?
Where both countries, that is the logic, that is the political logic of their situation, brings them together, and they need each other.
Right. So both of these countries are international pariahs in many ways. They're both under deep sanctions, and therefore they turn to one another. One can understand that. But then why did Russia support the UAE's position against Iran, do you think, regarding these items?
Russia has also vital interest in the Arab world, and we also have seen improvement. We have seen in spring of this year, Arab foreign minister of the foreign countries in Russia for a conference with the Russian foreign minister, and Russia has vital interest. We've witnessed a radical improvement of relations.
By the way, who said in chat it's going to be black shirts day today for Thompson? Were you correct?
And Russia is really interested in improving relations with the Arab world, so it really has to take very balanced position. It cannot act in such a way that it supports Iran and offends Arabs, or it cannot act in such a way that it offends Arab world and supports Iran and the other way around. That is why I think in this particular case, Russia has chosen, knowing that Iran has no other choice as to maintain good relations with Russia, has decided to support the United Arab Emirates. That's how
Has he ever worn a shirt of a different color?
It will change the logic of the situation. It will change the... Look, there is one more area in which...
Does he have one stream shirt?
Russia
and that's it?
Iran are vital partners. It's Syria. where they fought together in order to support President Assad's regime. Syria is extremely important for Iran because it opens up corridor to Lebanon and Iraq. And Syria is extremely important for Russians because the only naval base in the Mediterranean Sea is in Syria. So both countries are sort of doomed to cooperate in this area as well. Now they're trying to, we will see how it's going to develop because this puzzle in the Middle East is really very complex and dynamics change. But both countries, Iran and Russia, are willing to negotiate with President Erdogan so that he would improve Turkey's relations with Syria. This is on the agenda. They already announced intention to negotiate on this. So I don't think that in this present circumstances, Russia has other choice than to turn away from Iran, and Iran has other choice to turn away from Russia. These two countries in present.
How would you characterize, so if we leave the Russian-Iranian relationship to one side for a moment, how would you characterize the relationship between the Arab countries and Russia, and how that dynamic plays with the relationship between the Arab countries and the West?
Look, this is complicated. Like U.S. Secretary of State Blinken was in Riyadh, and he told his Saudi Arabia partners that Iran doesn't play a constructive role in the Middle East. But it was difficult to swallow for Saudi Arabia, which has just a couple of months ago has signed a peace deal with Iran and defrozen its relations. Arab world has vital interest, and Russia is seen as a supporter. Russia, which no longer has access to the Western world, United Arab Emirates, this is a very popular place for the Russian visitors to travel. This is extremely popular. They invest a lot of money. They spend a lot of money there. This is one of the relatively few windows to the outside world where they can enjoy their status of the superpower.
Relatively few windows, he goes.
Less money and is welcome partner.
But it really is.
The status they are not willing to risk at this particular moment.
Do you think that the Arab countries see Russia as a counterweight to the Western democratic ethos, if you like?
It's a very good point. It's a very good point because Russia, if you agree that to a certain degree the non-Western world is feeling some kind of anti-American and
why are you people doing a circle jerk over new F-15s? What is that?
As you remember, during the times of Soviet Union, Russia tried to play a role supporting so-called non-aligned movement or former colonies anti-colonial movement. Russia wanted to be seen as a supporter, as a friend, as an ally of this.
It wasn't an ally.
Of course, at that time, they had a different offer. They could offer attractive ideology, communist ideology, which
but they were not our ally.
In Africa or in Asia could have been seen attractive. They no longer have it. But this memory of Russia supporting anti-Western, anti-American sentiment, that is still remembered. And from this point of view, this is an interesting detail which I just picked up from the Russian media a couple of days ago. They're planning a summit of African leaders in Russia, and guess what? They decided to invite to the meeting.
They were the F-15s over Srebrenica, shit. But yeah.
Mandela, Patrice Lumumba, because that's going to be seen as a symbol of continuity of their support for this anti-Western world, and this is appreciated to a certain degree as long as those countries can afford some kind of conflict or some kind of disagreements with the Western world. As long as it is possible, they welcome Russia's support and this kind of attitude.
Despite the fact that Russia's invasion of
I
Ukraine...
said, I wanted to show you something, and I forgot what I wanted to show you, but I had something that I wanted to show you that I felt like you needed to see. And I'm trying to like quickly go through my links to figure out what it was, because I'm having to go relatively soonish. Not yet though, because I have other stuff to show you too. Hey, I got this video in my recommend, by the way, now that I'm looking through my links. Look at this shit.
Let's get ready to notification.
This is my, now when I open my YouTube, this is one of the first videos I get. Nice! Bro, Meloni looking good. I don't know who the Iceland woman is. Gilf. Hey, here's us. Somewhere. When did we enter? Yeah. What's that?
What do you think? When will Ukraine join NATO? Write your guesses in the comments.
Come on, how good is the fucking video? How good was that? Pavel is beautiful. He's a beautiful man. Holy shit. Croatia 223 again. We rejoin, we get out just to come back. ISIS? Hey, I saw something about ISIS. Yeah, I saw something about that. Oh shit. I'm not sure who. That's not Planky. Is that Planky? That's not Planky. They don't say that's Planky. Is that that's not Planky. I don't know who this dude is. I have no fucking idea who that man is. But also, I saved the video. Listen, I saved the video on cluster bombs because I think this dude makes really good videos. So we have to go through that one.
7th,
but also, I saved the video on Fellas. So you have to also listen to updates about Fellas, okay? Because we got a new truck. We got a new truck sent to the front.
За надану допомогу у вигляді автомобіля позашляховика, який буде виконувати завдання в найгарячіших точках нашої країни, спасати людські життя та боротись за нашу свободу. Слава Україні! Слава! Come
on. I knew one. We keep on getting new ones. Come on. Bat sniffers. They're doing so great. They're doing so great. I'm so happy for them. But also cluster bombs. Child wrote no to war. Is that what's the name? Misha? Masha? Is that the one I'm thinking about? Holy shit, wait. I blocked. There was that one.
На основании чего?
I misclicked and it opened it on your browser and it gave me the firewall thing. Oh, this one. Because if you remember that one who drew like an image. Oh shit, we don't have any translations.
Что это значит? Разъясняйте, пожалуйста.
Это мой ребенок, ребята. Я вам правду говорю, ей это плохо будет, ребята. Ребята.
Разъясните права и обязанности. Смотрите, что делают.
Bro. That feels like that. What happened with that little girl? Holy shit, was her father? What was her name? I was following Russians. Masha, yeah, her name was Masha. She was handed to mother. Oh shit. Because her father was amazing, and then what? Already former political prisoner Ruslan Kostlenko fulfilled his first little dream of freedom. He tried ice cream. Solidarity post. Oh, there's a whole telegram channel for what's the word? Advocating for her freedom. Okay, nice. People are trying to do translations and everything. This is actually kind of cool. But also kind of, I don't know. On one hand, I see this and I'm like, nice. People are making videos on what's happening in Russia. It's cool that we are getting information on this. And on the other hand, I'm like, bro, this dude like from USA is making videos covering this case and talking about this case. This is something we should have seen the Russian opposition do already. This is something they should have been screaming about already. It's like we're putting more effort into it than they are, and I don't know. I don't know how I'm feeling about all of this.
President Biden announced that the United States would transfer cluster munitions to Ukraine. This came with a fair bit of controversy, because many countries ban the use of such weapons. Thus, today,
cluster
we are going
munitions,
to
okay.
discuss what cluster munitions are and why they are helpful for the current situation in Ukraine, why there was a push to ban them in the late 2000s, and how a perfect storm
Bro.
of factors led
Busy
this to
hating
be
on
the
shark
time
memes,
that the
that
United
too.
States began transferring them. But we kick things off with some background on cluster bombs.
Kana. Malim! Aha, sretno! Okay. Pazi se. What I wanted to say. It's kind of ironic that when Garry Kasparov has said that all Russians are to be blamed for this war, Russians made up that story about little Masha, who was, a kid when Russia started the war in Chechnya, stuff like that. Oh, little Masha was not even able to vote for Putin on the last elections because she was 17. Oh, little Masha is now being blamed for this war. Kind of interesting they made up a story about little Masha to cry about, but then they have an actual little Masha in the country, and they are collectively doing absolutely nothing to help her. Now that I think about it, it's like, you have a little Masha there. There she is. And she's doing more than all of you opposition rats will ever do. And you're ignoring her. And then instead of doing anything to help actual little Masha, who you have in the country, you made up another little Masha just because, you needed an imaginary victim. You have a real victim of your bullshit right there, and you're doing nothing. So, no. All moral discussions about the use of defense cluster munitions are drowned in the blood of innocent people being bombed out of residential areas. That too. Yeah, Russians didn't sign it either, and Russians already use them. The idea that they're now being like, oh, it is immoral to use these, bitch. Where was this morality when you use them on civilians? Bro, come on. Hey.
Или бронежилеты, я от радости решила написать моей маме. Моя мама говорит, ну ты придурок, говорит. Все нормальные девочки радуются бриллиантам и дорогим машинам, а моя дочь радуется бронежилетам. Ребятки, что хочу сказать, меня уже дорогими машинами давно не удивит, поэтому если вы хотите удивлять, донатьте на грузинский легіон. А у нас слава Україні, і нехай у наших ворогів пір'я у горлі поросте. Короче, історія жизни мені подарила.
Fucking base. I'm simping for this woman. I want to donate. I want to donate to her now.
Perfect storm of factors led this to be the time that the United States began transferring them. But we kick things off with some background on cluster bombs.
Oh shit, that was a good video.
They are what they sound like. Here we see a test run of one being dropped from a plane, though Ukraine's will likely be fired from land. If we stop the video here, all of these white dots are called bomblets. They are the things that actually explode. Restarting from the top. As the device approaches the ground, it breaks apart and disperses the bomblets. They then explode over a much larger area than a single, normally sized bomb could. From a tactical perspective, you can see why Ukraine would be interested in having them, though many initial battles were either defined by urban combat or ambushes. With the notable exception of Bakhmut, much of the war in the east has shifted to a traditional battle in the trenches. Historically speaking, it is advantageous to clear large swaths of an opposing trench without having to execute an over-the-top raid. But doing that properly requires a ton of standard artillery shells, and that is a resource constraint. Meanwhile, the bomblets from a few cluster bombs can get the job done cheaply and in one fell swoop.
True.
This is especially attractive to Ukraine because of
Thank
its
you,
reliance on artillery.
USA.
If the United
You
States were
are
in
my
this
best
situation
friend.
and about to attempt an offensive against an entrenched
Oh,
enemy,
joining NATO.
the Air
Oh, we
Force
have
would
to watch
begin
that.
with a shock and awe style campaign
Wait, let me
to
save
soften up
it.
the enemy positions. Afterward, the army would come through in what soldiers would hope are just mop-up operations. Ukraine, in contrast, does not control the skies. As a result, Kyiv has been forced to substitute US-style shock and awe airstrikes with standard artillery. Of course, there is a limit to Ukraine's artillery supplies. Currently, Ukraine has focused its strikes on hindering Russian supplies and logistics, but it needs to keep some amount in reserve for the trench runs it plans to execute later. an influx of cluster munitions.
Mate, if you're here to ask what Democrats want to be for or against, I have to just quickly let you know that I couldn't give less of a shit what Democrats were supposed to be for or against, nor what Republicans are supposed to be for or against. That's a USA politics topic. I don't give a shit. I don't give a single shit. Giving out carpet bombs is good for Ukrainians to be managing to clear out Russian trenches relatively quickly, relatively easily, and without needless Ukrainian casualties, which is what we want to do. We want the least amount of Ukrainians to be having to put themselves in immediate danger. And if that is done with, bombing the fuck out of every single Russian in that trench, then so be it. I'll just be looking forward to GoPro videos.
Not only makes the
Deep
trench run
penetration
column
into
look
Russian
better,
occupied
it also
territory.
frees up existing artillery to target supplies and logistics.
They're going to be doing some
The
deep
smaller nature of
penetration,
bomblets
alright.
make them poor weapons for hardened targets, so Ukraine will want to save them for the trench purposes. Okay, that is the upshot for Ukraine. Now let's talk about why many countries have banned the use of cluster
Nuance
munitions.
repair. No, actually, yeah, also that too. Whoever is against helping a nation defend itself against a foreign invasion is a pussy. And when it comes to Republicans, this kinda, how would I say, it's disappointing. Like when you see Republicans these days, I don't know. I found one of them. Who's that one? Who's that one? Who's that one? Here it is. I had this dude say it because I was like, who the fuck is this one? But this one, and like there's this Republican's Twitter that keeps on like posting about him, and he keeps on being quite good on Ukraine.
I increase it because right now what the Biden administration is doing is giving them just enough weapons not to lose. I want them to have every weapon they need to be able to win. And this is a proxy war not just against Russia, Chris, but as you know, it's a proxy war against China. China is funding this Russian war through their purchase of Russian oil.
Like,
they
he
are
is
coordinating
strong.
with Iran to provide deadly weapons to the Russian army. And they are watching what we're going to do. And by the way,
Your party doesn't like what you're
Taiwan
saying
is
right
watching
now.
also.
Your party doesn't like it.
That's okay, Chris.
You got about
You know what?
50% of your voters
By
are
the
going to
way,
say,
Chris-
Christie, you rhino wino.
Chris, you know what the job of a leader is? It's not to follow polls, it's to change polls. And I will go out there and make the argument, and I will change minds and I will change hearts. Because what I'll say to folks is, we can spend this money now and have Ukrainian soldiers fight our war, or we can spend a lot more money and American blood later to fight in Taiwan. I'd rather have the fight now and send a clear message to China and not get to war to defend Israel in the Middle East by sending a clear message to Iran as well, that we will back our friends, our Ukrainian friends, and make sure that every authoritarian despot in this world knows that you cannot evade a free country and kill their innocent people and take their land with impunity.
Like I see his claims, to be honest. I kind of see his claims. He does, yeah, the whole proxy war thing. I'm also like, but also the way I see it, I don't take him as a political analyst of the situation here. I see him as speaking only and purely from the USA perspective. And I see why only and solely from the USA perspective you may be calling it a proxy war, because that's what it is from your position, isn't it? Right? It's not very likely that USA is doing this out of altruism. It is way more likely USA is doing this because USA wants to send a strong message to Russia. I see why he would be saying it. I don't hear him talk about the motivation to start the war. So I think I can kind of not ignore, tolerate the word usage. But I'm quite happy that he is for supplying Ukraine, to be honest. I think he's quite based on that. And I think also that is what a Republican should be. Like, that's what a proper patriot should be. We're going to send a strong message to the other countries that they cannot fuck with our friends. That's what a proper patriot should be. When you're a country that strong, when you're a country with that strong of a military production, that is what you should be supporting. It seems like the best possible choice for everyone involved. So yeah, it's kind of sad seeing that a lot of other Republicans are just fucking pussies and absolutely useless. I wish more of them actually had the balls to be like, bro, we're a strong fucking nation. Okay, everyone fears our military. We could probably wipe out at least 70% of the world without any effort, without losing a single American man, just because we're that fucking good. So you're not going to fuck with our friends, okay? Because we're going to demolish the shit out of you. That would be fucking based. So, you know, I'm hoping to see more Republicans kind of going down that path. I think it's a really, really based way to look at the situation. We're doing it. Some military contractors can test new shit, see if they work. Yeah, that too. As long as it doesn't put Ukrainians in danger, I'm good on it. You know, as long as the testing isn't, you know, testing air defense, so then we don't know if we're gonna be saved on time or whatever. As long as it's something that actually gives us the advantage on the battlefield, I'm like, GG. I don't really. You know, my point was always that I don't really particularly care about why why USA chose to join on our side. I'm happy that they did. If they're doing it to get more support for Biden, okay. If they're doing it to get more cash money into their military-industrial complex, okay. If they're doing it to encourage more countries to get into NATO, so, you know, the USA sphere of influence could be bigger, okay. I don't care. I'm very, very happy that they're on our side. I do think they could be doing a lot more, and I hope that they do a lot more, but I'm very, very happy that they're on our side. Trump is quite stupid. Trump is quite stupid, and I found that most Trump fans were equally stupid as he is. It's mostly just people who haven't really been used to thinking for a very, very long time.
The problem is duds. Not all of these bomblets are going to explode upon impact. The problem is that dud does not mean not explosive. It just means did not detonate at the appropriate time. If someone comes along months or years later and touches a dud, then just losing a hand might be a good outcome.
Yeah,
if your
you
manufacturing
could
is bad, the
wipe
dud rate
out
can range
a big
between
part
10
of the world,
and
definitely.
40%, with the high end reflecting estimates of Russia's stockpile. In contrast, the rate that the US hopes for in its shipments is just 2.35%.
Bro!
Even so, that means if you drop a single cluster bomb with 100 bomblets, 2 are going to stick around. That is better than 40, but still not exactly reassuring. This draws a parallel to landmines. Countries lay untold numbers of them during a war, and unfortunately, they stay in the ground afterward. Then one day a civilian is wandering around, minding their own business, and boom, suddenly there is no more civilian. That is why diplomats gathered in Ottawa in 1997 to draft the Convention on the Prohibition of the Use, Stockpiling, Production, and Transfer of Anti-Personnel Mines and on Their Destruction. Whew. I suppose there is a reason why people just call it the Ottawa Treaty, or the Mine Ban Treaty. Anyway, 164 countries are now a part of the convention. Notably absent is the United States, because of the extensive use of landmines to seal the border between North and South Korea. Incidentally, this is my favorite world border, because it is a 100% apparent line on map without the need to artificially draw it. Regardless, come 2008, diplomats decided to apply the same principles to cluster bombs. They met in Dublin and drafted the Convention on Cluster Munitions. Credit to them for keeping the name simple this time. 111 countries are party to the treaty, apparently undeterred by the fact that this, the official printed version of it, looks like it came from a 1950s typewriter. One reason that it gained so much traction is because of their best use. Cluster munitions are meant for fighting land wars over wide-open plains, like in World War I, or what people feared that the Cold War could devolve into. But it was 2008. Obama had just been elected president. Bitcoin was being invented. I was a wee lad who had just begun drawing his first line on a map. True story. Putin was doing that whole prime minister switcheroo thing. And hey, land wars in Europe were a thing of the past, and would absolutely never return again. Might as well sign the document and dispose of your stockpile if you have no use for them. Notably absent from the treaty are Russia, which has used cluster munitions during its invasion of Ukraine, Ukraine, which had a small stockpile at the start of the war, and of course the United States. Thus, pure use of cluster munitions is not illegal for those countries by international law, precisely because none of them have opted in. It is also worth noting the standard proviso that all international laws are laws, in the sense that no police force will arrest a powerful leader for breaking them. Regardless, the United States is sympathetic to the issues with cluster munitions. That is why almost 500 days of war passed before they got the green light. But the thinking goes that if Ukraine is willing to use them, and it is Ukrainian land, so future Ukrainians will be the ones who are going to bear the consequences, then maybe it is okay. So what changed Biden's mind over those 500 days? Well, it was the perfect storm of 3 factors: excess stockpiles, a shift in Ukraine's offensive, and poor planning from the West. Regarding the stockpiles, the Pentagon has 10,000 bombs just sitting in Europe that could immediately be sent over.
Bro.
There may be upwards of 3 million bombs residing stateside.
Bro.
Congressional Republicans sent a letter to Biden in March 2023 recommending the transfer specifically of cluster munitions. After all, there is just not much that the US can do with them, given that most of its NATO partners are members of the ban.
True.
If they are not appropriate for the situation in Ukraine, then when
They're
will
going to
they
go
be
bad.
appropriate?
They have an expiry
Second
date.
is the apparent
Give them to
change
us.
in dynamics of Ukraine's offensive. We have discussed before the progress that Ukraine has made along the Zaporizhia axis, in Bakhmut, and perhaps in Kherson. However, the more time passes, the more it appears that the operation will lie on the attritional side of the spectrum. Success in attritional warfare requires a ton of artillery. That does not inherently mean that cluster munitions are necessary, but it does take us to the third point, that this is the West's own doing.
Yes.
At the start of the invasion, U.S. strategic
Yes,
advisors
bastards.
were helping Ukraine plan a successful insurgency. Artillery was not a part of that. However, after a few weeks of fighting, it became clear that Kyiv was not going to fall. Despite that, both the United States and Europe did not get their artillery production in order. The exact reasons why are complicated and could warrant their own separate video. But the key point is that everyone in the West is shell-hungry. That may finally be changing, but something needs to hold over Ukraine in the meantime. And the solution is cluster munitions, even if they are banned in 111 countries. Hey, do you know what isn't banned in 111 countries? My book on the causes of Russia's invasion. At most, it's probably banned in, like, 10. Check the video description for more information on that.
Fair
And if
enough.
you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.
You know what isn't
Take
banned?
care.
My book.
Quick
I'm going
update.
to start doing that.
Gerasimov apparently has been found. As such, today's video will be the last time he is participating in hashtag Where's Gerasimov. Nevertheless, hashtag Where's Sorovikin and hashtag Where's Prigozhin are still in play, even if the latter
I love this
allegedly
one so
and
much.
inexplicably had a meeting with Putin post-mutiny. That is all the more intriguing given that it seems that he could not even force Gerasimov from power with his Moscow Thunder Run. But good luck finding him.
Nice. I love this man. I love this man. But yeah, nice. Didn't know they had so many cluster bombs in the stockpile. Holy shit, dudes. Holy shit. USA, did you know you're a friend? You know now. Give us some stuff. Give us some stuff. Give us some shit. Wait, what else did I want to show you? We could go through the where was the street interview one? This one? I haven't seen it. Is it going to be like, yeah, we want to join? Of course we want to join. Why the fuck would we say no to this?
Сьогодні почався саміт НАТО у Вільнюсі, на якому завтра
Oh,
буде
this was
Зеленський. Чого ви очікуєте від цього саміту?
filmed at the start of the summit.
Ну, я думаю, вони повинні все-таки прийняти рішення, що ми підемо в НАТО після війни. Тобто це, я думаю, вже вирішено. Тільки вони виставлять певні умови. Звичайно, корупцію потрібно буде ліквідувати, наскільки це можливо. Ну і ще які у них там умови будуть. Тому що я розумію, що у них є вимоги до того, щоб вступити в цей союз. Це дуже серйозні вимоги. Ну, і вони,
There's
я
a
думаю, нам
wasp in my room and
поставлять,
it's
а
killing
далі
me.
буде від нас залежно. Ну і коли війна закінчиться, зрозуміло, це буде потім.
Ну, що ми можемо очікувати? Ми то, звісно, хочемо якнайкраще, щоб нас прийняли в НАТО, щоб якась була защита і гарантії безпеки для нашої країни. Ну, а як у нас складеться, там будемо бачити.
Сьогодні почався саміт НАТО у Вільнюсі, на якому завтра вже буде Зеленський. Чого ви очікуєте від нього, від цього саміту? можливо, я з таких людей, що я, в принципі, не
Oh, most of
очікую
them were
ніякого
realistic.
такого, нічого такого прям зверхнього. Мені здається, що інші країни і так нам допомагають. Звичайно, нам здається, що це мало, бо гинуть наші люди і хотілося б більше. Але щоб сказати, що в мене якісь великі очікування відносно цього саміту, то немає. А як думаєте, будуть озвучені якісь пропозиції вступу чи конкретні дати і так далі? Ну, конкретних дат, я думаю, точно не буде. Можливо, якісь пропозиції і будуть, але не про конкретні дати, мені здається, мова не буде йти.
Я думаю, допомагають на такому рівні, але знову ж таки з тою такою обережністю, що ми допоможуть, так як і допомагають. Слава, без їхньої зброї важко було б нашим героям з автоматами відстоювати нашу Україну.
Особисто я не можу щось судити по цьому. Я думаю, що так швидко в НАТО нас не візьмуть.
Але чого ви очікуєте від самого саміту?
Yeah, I know, right?
Ну, хоча б якихось конкретних...
I spoke about this in like the last stream, I think, but I'm learning Ukrainian on Duolingo these days. And it's so interesting because like intuitively, you hear a word and you know what it is, especially if you speak Slovenian. A lot of Ukrainian words are very similar to Slovenian words. Their grammar is very similar to ours. But at the same time, so many words are different. Like you know what it is, but it's a different one. It's such an interesting language, truly.
Планів того, як Україні прийти в НАТО, хоча б.
Сьогодні почався саміт НАТО у Вільнюсі, на який скоро прибуде Зеленський. Чого ви очікуєте від цього саміту? Можливо, якісь знаки, що про подальший вступ чи так далі?
Ну, надія, ясно, вона не вмирає. І надіємося, що буде позитивний результат від цієї зустрічі. Хотілося б вірити в те переосознання нас всередині і в верхах, і між нами, скажімо, того, що було б для того, щоб воно дійсно реалізовувалося в життя, які потрібно зробити кроки. От.
Ви знаєте, я б боялася рік назад, що світ втомиться від нас, від нашої війни, тому що це здається думати, що проблема у нас, війна у нас і страждає від цього наше населення. Ну і
це комусь потрібно взагалі.
Да, що багато ж думає, що це все не без того, що це все війна, це комусь гроші, хтось заробляє на цьому. Але судячи з того, що вже рік пройшов і все рівно це питання гостро стоїть і ще гостріше починає ставати по всій країні, я надіюсь, це завдяки нашій владі, не без того. Але я надіюсь, що в Вільнюсі, чесно кажучи, я не знаю, що там мають вирішити на цьому саміті. Про НАТО, мені здається, чи ні? Про вступ в НАТО, якщо я не помиляюся. Ну, не все так просто з тим НАТО.
Ну, я вважаю, що пан Зеленський взагалі робить дуже багато для нашої країни, тому і надалі у Вільнюсі надіюсь на безпеку і захищене небо.
Сигодні почався саміт НАТО у Вільнюсі, на якому буде наш президент. Чого ви очікуєте від цього саміту? От, наприклад, можливо, якісь конкретні сигнали вступу?
The writing system.
Ну, я сподіваюся на це.
Yeah, I've only recently gotten used to like reading Cyrillics.
Якоїсь там гуманітарної допомоги, якогось озброєння, тому що того, що вони надають, це дуже мало для опору, для...
True.
Якщо не Україна, то НАТО буде скоро у війні.
Also true.
Я думаю, вступ в НАТО у нас буде незабаром. Бо так як наш президент вже щось робить для нашої країни, він намагається якось впливати на міжнародне суспільство, на весь світ, то я думаю, що з цього буде. Але, можливо, щось вийде незабаром зовсім.
Сьогодні почався саміт НАТО у Вільнюсі, на якому завтра буде Зеленський. Чого ви очікуєте від цього саміту?
Нічого. Хіба допомога Україні якась?
Очікую, що вони перейдуть до діла, а не будуть знову пусті обіцянки, як завжди.
Ви б хотіли, щоб Україна таки вступила в НАТО? Чи ви проти? Скоріше, да.
Ну, я, звичайно, за. Як і всі нормальні українці.
А ви взагалі хотіли б, щоб Україна вступила до НАТО?
Так.
Звичайно, хотіла.
Кожна здоровомисляща людина повинна бути, що ми в якійсь спілці повинні бути.
Ну ясно, що так. Ясно, так.
Ну, наразі так. Наразі так, тому що, як вияснилось, ми беззахисні, без ядерної зброї, на яку в нас забрали. І нам потрібна якась
Like, sorry, but I saw that message and it's like Russophobia has reached an intolerable level. It's like, no. Our Lord Sternenko has once said, our Russophobia is not enough. And that is what I am following, okay? It is not enough. It is intolerable because it is not enough. Until there's a cluster bomb in every single Russian ass, our Russophobia is not enough. Why does this matter to you? As a Croatian? What do you mean, why does this matter to me? What do you mean? Why does an invasion on a country close matter to me? Ukraine is like one country difference from Croatia. I go Croatia, Hungary, I'm in Ukraine. Dude, it's like right here. What do you mean, why does this matter to you? Not only that, but also Russia itself is having strong influences in the Balkans on Vucic and Dodik. If Russia gets a victory, we may be getting fucked here, my dude. Okay? Russia inherently, by getting a victory, is going to encourage both Vucic and Dodik. It is absolutely in my interest for us to not just destroy the myth of the Russian Empire, but to also piss on the graves of every single invader. If they get any sort of a victory there, we're going to be having problems here. Of course it matters to me. And then also the Russian influence on our politics matters a lot to us too. When you look at our pro-Russian politicians, they usually are the same politicians who are, for example, denying Croatian war crimes. Our president, the one that was quoted so many times by people for, not wanting to poke the Russian bear. We shouldn't get into this fight. This should be a fight of Ukraine itself. The same president is denying Srebrenica. The same president has recently went on an event celebrating the creation of Croatian troops, which went and invaded Bosnia. Same president literally glorifying Croatian war crimes. Russian-controlled, Russian-influenced politicians are directly creating conflict in Europe. Destroying Russia is to the benefit to us all. But then also, Croatia had a very, very similar situation to Ukraine. I feel like on an emotional level, it also makes sense that it matters a lot to us. Croatia got invaded by Serbs in the very much same way that Ukraine got invaded by Russians. We were lucky and we had foreign help. And because we had foreign help, we were able to win. But it was a tough fight and we lost a lot of people. Croatia still lives in the memory of this war. It was a very recent thing. We all have someone that we have lost, either like fighting for it or as a civilian victim. It's a very, very recent thing. Not only did we lose a lot of people, but also our war criminals during the war in Yugoslavia are directly linked to Russians. Like Girkin was literally here. It's linked. The shithole has been trying to destroy the rest of Europe for years. Of course this matters to me, and of course I want them to be destroyed. Croatia is part of NATO. Yeah. Girkin was in Bosnia specifically. The dude speaking to Arestovich was also in Bosnia. What's his name? Who knows his name? He does live streams with Arestovich regularly. Or at least he used to be doing them. He was in Bosnia. Lots of Russians were war criminals in Bosnia. Some of them in Croatia with Arkan, but many of them in Bosnia. They were like literally here. So, the whole thing for me, it's like, of course it matters to us. It should be mattering to us.
Одні проти держави-агресора такого масштабу. Я думаю, що нам це дуже потрібно зараз, якщо чесно. Я ж говорю, це все моя суб'єктивна думка.
А взагалі ви б хотіли, щоб Україна вступила в НАТО?
Ну, можливо. Якщо я колись думала інакше, то зараз, напевно, так. Тоді, можливо, нас боялися б і не напав ніхто на нашу державу.
Думаю, так.
Я думаю, якщо НАТО, це буде трохи більше цивілізація, це не буде війни такі, як зараз ідуть, що це буде більш цивілізовано.
Але як думаєте, чи вони підуть зараз не таке?
Yeah, that too.
Можливо, не зараз і не скоро, бо це, я рахую, я не знаю, може їм це не вигідно.
Вступ в Європу я не хочу, до НАТО, може, було б добре.
Ви взагалі хотіли б, щоб Україна вступила до НАТО? Чи, можливо, ви проти такого?
Я не проти, я за, тільки щоб у нас був якийсь захист, і якась більша допомога, озброєння і, якщо це нам буде йти в наше благо і в плюс, то я завжди за. Але я думаю, що прийде час, коли у нас буде свій альянс і ще інші країни будуть хотіти вступити до нас.
Я хотів би, ми всі хочемо перемоги, а там далі може ще щось буде, якийсь космічний блок. Ну, звичайно, що якщо йшов НАТО і це далі війна, не так скоро, певно, завершиться, і це мене менше цікаво.
Oh, understandable that. Rebel uprising had not trained. Yeah, they banned our trade. It directly influenced both us and Bosnia. We couldn't be getting guns. And Serbians were getting shit. Because Serbs had the JNA on their side, which was the Yugoslav army, right? Which was like the official army of Yugoslavia. They had that. So, yeah. Croatians were warning about the danger of Serbia for years previously. No one listened to us. There was this one event that I mention every time we talk about this, about how we tried to bomb the Statue of Liberty. How do I find this? No. Here it is, 1981. We tried to bomb the Statue of Liberty because we were trying to bring attention to the fact that Croatians are being mistreated in Yugoslavia and we need foreign help, and no one was paying attention to us, no one was helping us at all. So we were trying to bring attention from Americans to the fact that we are, trying to fight for our independence, and we tried to bomb the Statue of Liberty. It didn't really work. We got figured out, and the bomb was removed, and everything was all right. But we tried. We were trying to warn them for years. Nothing was happening. Everyone was ignoring us. The whole fucking invasion starts. They're still ignoring us. Only later did they join in to help us organize the Oluya operation and to help us regain our territory, which of course we are very, very grateful for. But yeah, I don't know how we could be pretending that this war shouldn't matter to someone in Eastern Europe. I don't know why it would be a question in the first place. I could understand asking someone, and not even from USA now that I think about it. I don't know which country in the world you could be from that this war doesn't influence you in a way. You should be caring about it. So, yeah, overall, I'm having to leave. It's 9 and 10. I'm mostly just happy over most of the things we've seen. So I'm GG. I managed to get through most of the links I wanted to go through. I still have some stuff saved, but we will be having time next week. So I'm very, very happy about that. Also, I'm hoping to get more sleep. I'm still working tomorrow, my dude. I'm working on a fucking Sunday. But I'm hoping to manage to finish a nice part of my Patreon thing. I planned to start for the Ukrainian creators because I really, really want to focus on that the most. So, ha. CSTO? No, CSTO is more of a useless little crumbling organization at this point, right? Like, it used to be pretending to be useful in a way. I think at this point we kind of had to accept it's mostly useless. For a while it was relatively. Yeah. What would be a way to say this in a nice way? I think for a while we had reasons to wonder whether Siesto is going to be actually doing something, and then it turns out they're not. Let me do the raid thing, by the way. Is it working? Nice, 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 nice. So yeah, if you have some good Ukrainian creators, do let me know. So far, I'm planning to do a thing on Sternenko, and then I'm going to be seeing the rest. I want to have the Twitter or something similar of every one of them linked, so we could be following their posts regularly. But I also want to do like a little background thing and whatever. I want to do the same for some Russian opposition members, because I think it would be interesting to look into them, basically. I'm thinking it might be interesting to see what's happening. Ukrainian base. I don't even know what he's watching. Intended for certain audiences. May contain significant profanity or vulgarity, violent and graphic depictions. This violent and graphic depictions, this is him describing to you how he's going to fuck your mother in 20 different ways whenever you make him angry. While it recently made him angry. I don't know if you guys were there. I felt really, really bad. I don't even remember what it was. He was just fucking pissed off. But yeah, holy shit, my cat is here. Hope you will have a great weekend. I hope you're going to enjoy every single second of it. Sleep until noon, because I have to wake up really, really early, okay? So get extra sleep for me. And yeah, see you on Monday. Send me cool news if you have any. Eat well, sleep well, drink well. Ciao.